Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Morgan.
Here.
Alderman Goonan.
Here.
Alderman Long.
Here.
Alderman Fajardo.
Here.
Alderman Tony Sapienza.
Here.
Alderman Cantor.
Here.
Alderman O'Neill.
Here.
Alderman Lavasser.
Here.
Alderman Terrio.
Here.
Alderman Ed Sapienza.
Here.
Alderman Burkish.
Here.
Alderman Berry.
Here.
Alderman Vincent.
Here.
Alderman Thomas.
Here.
All present.
The purpose of the public comment session is to give residents of Manchester the opportunity to address the board. All people wishing to speak must sign up with their name, address, and topic prior to 7 p.m. Once called, they will have up to 3 minutes to speak, and any comments must be directed to the chair and conclude when their time is up. If the clerk calls their name and they are not present to speak, they will not be given a second opportunity. Any resident wishing to speak will come forward to the nearest microphone, clearly state their name and address when recognized, and give their comments.
Bryce Cowu, followed by Rich Gerard.
All right, good evening, Mayor Rouet and Aldermen. My name is Bryce Cowu, and I live in Ward 1. I also serve as chair of the Manchester Planning Board. And I wanted to speak to you this evening as a last resort of sorts to save a couple of my fellow planning board members. On the agenda for this evening, Mayor Rouet proposes to replace Eliza Agosta and Sean Sargent, despite their eligibility to serve another term. It has been standard practice for the volunteers who give their time to serve on a community boards and commissions to be given the opportunity to serve another term if they are interested, if they are eligible, and if they have done a good job. Both Sean and Eliza have proven themselves as dedicated public servants with level heads, sound judgment, and a commitment to our city. Sean is an advocate for common sense on the planning board, and he was a driving force behind the successful ADU zoning improvements that the city implemented last year. Eliza, for her part, is a young engineering professional who has quickly gotten up to speed in the few months that she has had on the board. We need more young people like her to step up and give back to their community. I've enjoyed serving alongside Sean and Eliza, and I believe that they still have so much more to offer if given the chance. So I would ask you, Mayor Rouet, and all the aldermen here tonight, to not go through with replacing these two members of the planning board. They are eligible for reappointment. They are eligible for reappointment. They have done a good job, and they are on record supporting the mayor's recent efforts to proactively reform our ordinances. They are honorable volunteers who would keep giving back to our city if given the chance. So if Sean and Eliza are to be removed from the Manchester Planning Board, please at least thank them for their service, and please explain why you view their replacement as a helpful move for the city. Thank you.
Richard Gerard, followed by Jose Marte.
Members of the Honorable Board, for the record, my name is Richard Gerard and I reside at 283 Orange Street. In December 2019, Max Latona, who has been nominated for a position on the ZBA, told the New Hampshire Business Review, quote, "I think it's the responsibility of us as a community to provide housing to those who live in the community or those who would like to live in the community. It's a matter of justice, fairness, when we have highly restrictive zoning regulations that make it impossible for young people to start families." Since then, Latona has led the development of the New Hampshire Zoning Atlas. While Latona and others affiliated with the effort claim not to take sides in the ongoing debate over potential changes to state law and local zoning ordinances, it's clear from the 24 or so stories in which he's been quoted that he has a point of view. In an article in the Monadnock Ledger transcript, Latona said, "There are a lot of people, not-for-profit developers, that want to build homes, but they can't. And the reason they can't is there's something restricting them, and that restriction is what we just refer to as restrictive zoning." In another New Hampshire Business Review article published last October, Latona was referred to as, quote, "one of the leading advocates for statewide policy changes that encourage the construction of more housing, particularly affordable housing." Last May, Latona was part of a webinar discussion about accessory dwelling units that included Ben Frost from the New Hampshire Housing Authority, the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, who is also part of this Atlas project, and James Veo, who came before this board presenting himself merely as a resident from Ward 7 to endorse the pending zoning changes, but who, in reality, is a former project manager for Southern New Hampshire Services and a senior vice president of planning and development at Impact Collective, a development company that, among other things, builds high-density residential projects. Others involved in backing this zoning atlas include the New Hampshire Office of Planning and Development and the Community Loan Fund, both of which are focused on providing high-density, low-income housing, Jason Sorens, the founder of the Free State Project and a zoning opponent generally, and the Charles Koch Foundation, whose affiliated organization, Americans for Prosperity, has consistently advocated for eliminating zoning regulations. Though for different reasons, they all want radical changes to allow for much greater density. In addition, the Zoning Atlas is a subsidiary of a national effort led by Sarah Bronin, who has a long history of advocating for changes to local zoning, like those pushed by the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development under the Obama and Biden administrations. While I don't begrudge Mr. Latona his policy advocacy, I do believe it disqualifies him from being a member of the zoning board.
30 seconds.
The ZBA is a quasi-judicial body that exists to grant exceptions to the city's zoning ordinance when specific hardships exist. It is not a place to which people with publicly presented policy preferences should be appointed. Neighbors must trust that their evidence was fairly heard and evaluated before a decision was rendered. Policy advocates who have a clear and consistent policy predisposition simply will not be seen as honest brokers. Because of this, I ask the board not to approve Latona's appointment as a full member of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. Thank you.
Jose Marte, followed by Jessica Margison.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize, I'm a little bit nervous. My name is Jose Marte. I live over at 62 Trahan Street, and I'm here to talk to you guys about a simple plan that would end up to 80% of the homeless population here in Manchester. And it will cost you pretty much just a phone call to your state representatives and lawmakers. Under Chapter 463-3, all parents are created equal under the law, meaning that that unless one parent is deceased, both parents have equal right, duty, responsibilities, and power. A lot of the homeless people out on these streets are parents that could not deal with child support, and what happens is that they undergo a spiraling mental health that drags them down through their jobs, and then they perform poorly, which leads them down to losing their jobs, losing their home, ultimately becoming homeless. I urge you guys to take a little bit of time to talk to people like Ross Berry and other state legislations and state representatives to strengthen these laws to help parents keep not only their children at home in a loving, equalized environment, but also to end homelessness. I know because I became homeless many years ago under this. I'm sorry, like I said, I'm very nervous. Under the administration that I had to pay child support, that I had to do a lot of things that weren't towards the law, and I overcame a lot of hardship, a lot of obstacles, and I'm just asking that you guys just pick up the phone, call your state representatives. I think that's all. Like I said, I do apologize. This is my first time here, and I wanna try to end this homeless thing that's been going on for far too long. I've noticed since Judge Green retired in 2012, there hasn't been a lot of cases that have been 50-50.
30 seconds.
And I've seen that a lot of people have been spiraling down into homelessness because of this case. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to me complain. Have a great night, everybody.
Jessica Margison, followed by Madeline Jones.
Good evening, everybody. Jessica Margison, tenant organizer. I am here speaking on behalf of myself tonight. I live in Ward 4 on Hanover Street in Manchester. So tonight what I'm here to speak about is affordable housing. Some of you guys might have noticed when you came in the front door, unless you're already up here busy, we had a small action outside a gathering for us to be able to speak on truly affordable housing. So being on the Manchester Housing Commission was a goal of mine to try and increase affordable housing. I'm only one person on this commission, and yes, we do need all forms of housing at all different levels. But I want to remind everybody, someone at 100% AMI has many choices underneath them, while someone at 30 and 50% only has a few. They cannot go to another apartment higher than what they can qualify for while they wait for another one. We wait in shelters and we wait in our vehicles. I myself had to sleep in my vehicle for 5 weeks due to the lack of affordable housing out there. There wasn't a room or something I could get in quick enough. I was able and lucky enough, through the amount of people I know, to find another room to rent eventually. Even me with my resources and what I do know, still had to do that. What I noticed while I was out there is how many others there were. I was homeless during the pit count. So a true representation, we always say, take the number you have on paper and multiply it by 3. That is so real. Out of those 5 weeks, I got to stay at a hotel for 3 nights. During those 3 nights is when the pit count occurred. But had I been in my vehicle, I probably would have hidden. It is not something I wanted to go through in the middle of the night, and I'd probably been asleep. So the numbers we see on paper are not real. There's more. While I slept out there, I met many people. I was able to spot the signs quicker of someone living in their vehicle while I was in mine. There's so many people, so many people. So what I wanted to bring forward, you guys already have the Manchester Housing Quick Guide. When you take a look at that, at your 30%, 50%, and 60% AMI, the rents that they show underneath there, we know we don't have that. When we have one person at 30% area median income with an income of $22,250, what they qualify for is $556 a month.
30 seconds.
We don't have that out there. So we ask that the next group of housing to be created be at truly affordable. We have 1,522 in process or built of 100% AMI, while we have a staggering 377, or is it 379, at 30 to 80%. We need to fix the numbers. We need to even them up. These numbers, 30% to 80% represent your workers downtown, your grocery store, your schools, fire department, the police stations,
3
everything.
minutes.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Madeline Jones, followed by Griselis Glenn.
Gentlemen and gentlewomen of the board, hi, it's me again, Madeline Jones. Have you missed me? Where did we leave off? Last time I spoke here, a resident who came to speak on a different topic used the last few seconds of his time to incorrectly claim that what is happening to the people of Gaza is not a genocide, because a genocide is when 6 million people are killed because of who they are. Let me be the first to say that the Holocaust was a vile crime, and that all people who lost family and loved ones during it should be recompensed in any possible way, and anyone responsible for mass killing should be punished to the fullest extent. If you'd like to pass a resolution about the disgusting actions of the Third Reich, I would support it. However, those actions are not what myself and others are here to discuss. And what we are here to discuss is still happening right now. Allow me to put the scale of what is happening in Gaza into perspective for you. I've tried to do this for you before, if you remember, when I reminded you that just as you or I are unique individuals, each of the 29,000 people murdered by Israel are also. The number of slain Palestinians is now 41,000, by the way. That's 12,000 people who could still be alive today if our government had called for a ceasefire in February. The Gaza Strip is only 141 square miles total. Imagine driving from Livingston Park here in Manchester to the Trader Joe's in Tingsboro, and then picture 4 square miles on either side of that route. That's the size of the Gaza Strip. Now imagine that the entire population of New Hampshire, or in other words, 1.2 million people lived in that small area. The average population density would be 4 times higher than Manchester's is currently. Israel has dropped the equivalent of more than 2 atomic bombs worth of munitions in that area. 150 people have been killed for the crime of living where their fathers and grandfathers lived per day. At least 40% of those martyred are children. To quote directly from the United Nations Convention on the Prevention and Crime of Genocide, which was directed by the creator of the word genocide, Raphael Lemkin, genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group, such as killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. You could not more succinctly summarize the
30
acts of
seconds.
violence committed by Israel these past 6 months. It is inarguably genocide. Don't take my word for it. I encourage anyone listening to look into the International Court of Justice case against Israel from January of this year. We are not deluded into thinking that the 13 or so many of you alone could stop the slaughter of Palestinians in Gaza. But we are not deluded for wanting to live in a place that denounces collective punishment of civilians. We are not deluded for wanting our local government to declare that it does not support crimes against humanity.
3 minutes.
It is not only for our souls that we raise this plea, dear members of the board, it is for your souls, for your humanity. Thank you.
Grizelis Glenn, followed by Bradley Conway.
Hi, my name is Griselli Glenn. I'm a homeless mother of 2, although my children are in DCY. I have custody right now because of being homeless. I find it kind of astounding that you all, when you pledge you do the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning, and those words are they're like empty. They're empty words. Do you guys even hear what you're saying when you pledge the Pledge of Allegiance, or they're just redundant words? Pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. If you look around Manchester, you don't see liberty and justice for all anywhere. And I'm curious to know if any of you have watched any of those videos that they reference when they're talking about the ceasefire. Because if any of you have, I don't know how it would be so difficult to just say the words that they're asking for to cease fire. What is it going to cost you? What does that cost you for y'all to come in agreement and say cease fire, knowing that it's not gonna stop it? No, it's gonna automatically stop it, but it's gonna show where we stand under one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all, not just people from the United States, for all. That's what we're supposed to be representing. And you don't see that around here. You don't see that from our own elected officials. You don't see that from people that work for the city. You don't see that from the police. You don't see that from anywhere around here. We can't tell that. It's disappointing. It's a shame while y'all stand up here and stand and pledge allegiance to that flag and don't even do any of the words that you're up there quoting. I wasn't planning on speaking about the ceasefire, but I had to say that. Also, I know a few times that I've come here, I keep hearing about the rebranding, this rebranding that you all are doing. And I'm curious is that you really are thinking or expecting that you're going to be able to rebrand Manchester without first addressing the homeless issue. You can't even walk down Elm Street for 2 minutes without seeing a homeless person. How are you going to be able to rebrand a city when you have that much homeless going on? That doesn't make any sense. How do you even talk about rebranding Manchester when you have to take care of this issue before you can address rebrand Manchester? You're not going to be able to rebrand Manchester. Even when you do, if you try to, what are you going to be rebranding when there's still the issue of homelessness that's going to cause issues for your grand rebranding? Thank you.
Bradley Conway, followed by Salam Odin.
Good evening, everybody. Mayor and Aldermen. Ramadan Mubarak to all the folks out there who are celebrating and breaking their fast right now. I'm here tonight because I think the City of Manchester should do more to reflect the will of its residents and to do its part to join the global movement for Palestinian solidarity. The people in Gaza continue day after day to suffer the most unspeakable horrors imaginable. Our federal representatives, and I'm talking about Chris Pappas, Maggie Hassan, and Jean Shaheen, are pretending they're oblivious to the horror that they're inflicting on Palestinians and that they somehow can't hear the public's outcry. Obviously, I'm pretty disappointed that the mayor and aldermen don't have the courage to use their resolution process to speak truth to power on behalf of the residents of Manchester. It should go without saying that it's truly a nightmare to be a resident of Manchester right now, because not only are we being gaslighted by our federal representative delegation, but despite months of testimony in this room aimed at convincing this board to stick up for its constituents, you have all chosen to gaslight us at the city level by refusing to acknowledge the way our federal leaders are abusing their power and the public trust. For the record, I believe the BMA, most especially the mayor, are culpable in this ever-intensifying, catastrophic moral failure in New Hampshire's leadership. So as I understand it, most of this board voted to never consider a ceasefire resolution because it's not germane to the city business. To be fair, though, our ceasefire resolution covered many issues, and it was not limited to the topic of ceasefire. It also covered the urgent necessity for the provision of humanitarian aid to millions of starving people, a release of both Palestinian and Israeli hostages, and it called for an end to U.S. military aid to Israel, an issue that directly affects all tax-paying Manchester voters and therefore this committee. But tonight I want to bring your attention to the fact that our ceasefire resolution also contained a clause for divestment. For those on the board who might not know, divestment is the opposite of investment. The city of Manchester is most likely in a position to move money around to position itself in a more ethical way to help pressure Israel economically in pursuit of ceasefire and a free Palestine. I'd like to read for you the divestment clause that was in our ceasefire resolution. It seems pretty relevant to the city of Manchester to me. Let me know if you agree. Be it further resolved that the Manchester Mayor and Board of Aldermen shall establish a committee to identify, divest from, and prevent business with all
30
entities
seconds.
involved in the U.S.-Israeli military-industrial complex. We want to see the city take its money out of any investments that make the genocide in Palestine possible. Again, this is a municipal issue. You can try to wiggle and weasel your way out of it all you want, but the fact remains, you could do something to help starving people and stand up for your constituents, but you have so far decided not to. And thank you so much, and I have some materials for distribution. It's the divestment resolution draft, submitted by Brad.
Salam O'Day, followed by Glenn Ulett.
Hi. So again, my name is Salam Odi, and I have no hope that any of you would be involved with the ceasefire or even care for the ceasefire resolution. However, I do have some issues, and I'm going to address those directly with the mayor. I did call the office here on the 3/22 3 times, requesting a 15-minute meeting with you one-on-one. I was told they will get back to me tomorrow, and no one did. However, I called today, and I was shocked to be attacked by a Miss Glandis, McCain Glandis, defending the actions of the bully that we have here, who's attacking me on Facebook publicly. I'm not a public figure, Your Honor, and I'm being attacked. I'm being attacked and put in harm's way. And if anything that happens to me or to any of my children, it would be, I will hold him responsible and hold you responsible for my safety and my children's safety. Now, the other flag that I have, I've never supported anybody, not Hamas, not any organizations We asked for a ceasefire. We were very clear. The other flag that I have in my house is the Navy. My son is a soldier. He's in harm's way. And you want to put me in harm's way and my family for speaking up the truth and for wanting to be on the right side of history? Of course, and that goes for you, Chrissy.
Please direct your
Cantor.
comments to the chair.
I'm sorry, but she has also been active and been sharing photos of us. Again, we are not a public figures. As of December of 2012, I'm not a public figure no more. I finished serving as a state commissioner on the status of women in the state of New Hampshire.
30 seconds.
December 2012. I want us to be safe. We did respect the rules, but the city belongs to the people of Manchester. Really, only today, after I was attacked by Miss Gladys, I felt like this is a circus. This is not the city of Manchester. You are all here to serve us, okay? So we voted for you to be in those seats to serve us and look after us. We're trying to make Manchester
3
be
minutes.
better. So, thank you.
Glenn
And free
Ulett.
Palestine.
Glenn Ulett.
Good evening. My name is Glenn Millette, and I live in 112 Auburn Street. I'm here tonight to speak about housing. Before I do that, I noticed that the trees off of Elm Street of Veterans Park have come down, as they should. They're rotten. I'm hoping that the wells remain. If you guys destroy those wells, you will have once again wasted taxpayer money. There are people out there that wait for the bus. There's no place to sit. Some of them are homeless. We need to have some type of credibility here. I want to go to housing. Of the 2,500 roughly apartments you're building in this city between last year and maybe 2025, 26, 300 are for affordable housing. I'm not talking workforce, I'm talking just affordable housing. Today, we see a lot of seniors losing their rents because rents go up and up and up. Their incomes are not going up. Most of you on this board remember that if your father died and your mothers were in charge of raising the children, that was their job in those days, they get a part of the husband's income. Well, $525 to $800 doesn't cut the rent, let alone anything else. Just remember that. Affordable housing is for those that need it. Now, I understand that we're about to hire some 7,000 new employees for the Army plant, and I think that's fantastic. So you also need expensive housing. I understand that. But this city doesn't only need expensive houses, it needs housing in every single category. Now, when we count roughly 600 people that are homeless, it's time that this board includes the 974 school students that are considered homeless. Not talking about those that are in dire need because they're about to be homeless. If we don't take care of these children now, we will lose them to the gangs and crime. They will be our problems tomorrow.
30
Our job
seconds.
is to save them. So I ask you to please, when you vote for things, when it comes that are very important to our city, like housing, that you vote for it. And you accept the federal money that comes in because that's our dollars. And in New Hampshire, we only bring in 57 cents of every dollar that we give to the government. Thank you very much.
That concludes our list of speakers.
Thank you. Is there a motion to take all comments under advisement and further receive and file any written documentation presented by Alderman Terrio, seconded by Alderman Cantor. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Presentation, we have a health insurance update with representatives from USI, Anthem, Human Resources, and Finance.
All right, thank you very much. As you know, I'm Lisa Drabeck. I'm the HR director for the city. I wanted to introduce who's here tonight from USI and Anthem. They'll be doing the majority of the presentation. Sharon and I are sitting up here because we want to be able to answer any questions that you may have. We work cooperatively with these folks on a weekly, monthly, and sometimes daily basis. So we wanted to be here to present this to you as a united front. So we have Leanna Delatorre. She's a senior vice president from USI, who's our benefits broker. And then from Anthem, we are lucky to have two representatives here tonight. We have Mladen, who I know most of you know. He's our account executive assigned to the city, and James Montecalvo, who's one of the vice president of sales for Anthem. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Leanna.
Thank you, Lisa. Good evening. Again, my name is Leanna Delatorre, consultant at USI Insurance Services. And I am here tonight to provide you with an update. Some of it is good news, some of it is not the news I want to be sharing, but as part of my job is to continue to thoroughly evaluate the city's data and provide the results to you so you can make an informed decision. So kicking off with the agenda. We'll provide you with a high-level background of what has transpired with the City of Manchester's employee health plans. We'll review the numbers, what's working, a 7-year historical look back, and share some information about other municipalities and our ongoing efforts. So starting with the positives. At USI, we have something called a managed carve-in pharmacy contract with our Anthem partners. So this is something that we negotiated on the back end for our clients. And hand in hand with Anthem and Carillon, which is Anthem's pharmacy benefit manager, we have this contract set up to provide deeper discounts and higher rebates. So this is something that we partner with a firm called Truveris, and this is really getting into the weeds, but just a high-level overview. Truveris works to audit every single pharmacy claim that comes through to make sure that what we have contracted with Anthem is ringing true. With that being said, an example of the impact that this is making for third quarter, we'll be receiving $380,000 back alone in pharmacy rebates. And our projection in rebates for fiscal year 2024 is $1.2 million. So that's in rebates alone. Potential population health management strategy. So there was a great article outlining the proposal in today's Union Leader. And really the goal is to help make employees healthier, live longer, and save the city dollars in the future. So this is not a quick fix. This is more preventive and will help us with catch illnesses quicker. And we know that when you catch something at an earlier stage, it is less expensive all around. We also aligned medical and dental plans so that dependents are now eligible for coverage up to age 26. This was not the case before, and we found it to be confusing for employees, so we've received great feedback on that. We also made an HSA, which is a health savings account, vendor change, and we moved to a vendor called HSA Bank. This provided some cost savings and better customer service for the City of Manchester members on the health plan. And then lastly, we'll speak about Smart Shopper. The engagement with Smart Shopper continues to rise year over year, and we rolled out a targeted communications campaign, which was kicked off this year to re-engage members who haven't been active in the past few years. So to touch upon Smart Shopper, again, enhanced communications plan for 2024. We've been steering non-engaged members to use Smart Shopper, and this is triggered behind the scenes in the Smart Shopper system, and it's led internally by behaviors of consumers and any upcoming appointments to help with steerage to higher quality facilities, which are less expensive. In 2022 to 2023, we increased net savings by $180,000. And that includes total savings plus the amount paid out to employees from Smart Shopper. We want to give you some context here on how a small population of members can make a huge impact on the plan. When you have a high-cost claimant, it can certainly drive your health insurance spend for the year, and that's what insurance is for. That's why we have it, right? But we wanted to share a snapshot. So for fiscal year 23, we had an average of 2,815 lives per month, and this includes employees, early retirees, and all covered dependents. The net cost, so the cost after we put in stop-loss reimbursements and any rebates that we get back, was $24.1 million. Of that 24.1, 6.45 was for care provided to 29 people, equaling 27% of the fiscal year 23 spend. For 2024, where we are as of today, the city's healthcare plans cover an average of 2,814 lives per month. Through the month of February, again, we're showing you a snapshot in time, the city has spent $16.9 million on healthcare, including $3 million for 10 claimants. So that's 18% of our fiscal year spend so far. Something important to point out is half of those 10 claims are cancer claims.
Say that again.
Through February 2024, the city has spent $16.9 million on healthcare, including $3 million for 10 claimants, 18% spent thus far, and it's 10 of them.
Half of the 10.
Pardon me, 5 are cancer claims.
Okay, thank you.
5 of the 10, yep. And
Go to the next slide.
next slide, okay. And now Anthem would like to share some stats as well.
So we focused on some of the stats as well, just to show you what really is going on out there. And I work very closely with your employees and their dependents, as many of you have seen me around different departments. And I just want to make a statement that is, these are your employees in need, and thankfully they have had this great insurance that you offer to them, because as you can see, many of them were sick and they really needed this care. And many of them got the care where in the right settings, and majority of them did end up going down to Boston, but unfortunately that's caused by cancer. As you can see, right in the middle where the red arrow is, you really had some issues with cancer. This past, I would say over the last 18 months, you have had this lingering issue with a lot of your employees and their dependents having cancer. And if you can see on the red box up there, 54%, there was an increase of 54% for high-cost claimants, which is per member per month, and all of that was mostly driven by cancer and musculoskeletal. Many of these people, like I said, have gone down to Boston and got the right care at the right settings, and thankfully because you offered them the right insurance. There's some really good numbers on here as well, which is on the bottom right corner. As you can see, 76.7% of your employees and their dependents actually do go see their primary care. So when we read the article in Union Leader this morning, we actually applauded you for doing something like that, because we strongly do believe if you do encourage your employees and their dependents to get early screenings, that we can catch certain things at earlier stages and provide them a better care. At the same time, on the bottom right, you can see 63% of overall population does get their annual wellness checks, which is great. I think that is a really good number, but we can do better than that. And I think what the HR department in partnership with USI is looking to partner, I think we could increase that number even higher. On the bottom left there under pharmacy, Leanna has spoken just earlier about the special contract we have for the City of Manchester, which Anthem has been a true supporter of City ever since we have managed your care. We kept your pharmacy trend at 2.8%, which is phenomenal. You probably have already heard and hear a lot of stories about all kinds of different medications out there increasing. We have kept your trend at 2.8%, so that is a really good number to see. So that's just a quick overview of what's overall happening. There's a couple more slides I'd like to walk you through. This slide, what I'm trying to show you is compare the current fiscal year over the last 3 fiscal years, and it really comes down to why are your claims up? Your claims are up because of the high-cost claimants, unfortunately. It is an unfortunate situation. These people weren't sick, they needed the care, and they got the care. But that's why these costs are up. Please move to the next slide if you don't. And here's a quick snapshot. I think it will help you understand and kind of visualize what is really happening over time with high-cost claimants. I do want to make a statement and say we can project as much as we want and can, but things change very quickly and can change very quickly when it comes to the claims and overall medical conditions. If you look at the 2022 year, and if you look at almost the second to the last claimant, in 2022, that claimant only had $9,000 in total claim spent. Let's look where that claimant ended up in 2023. Unfortunately, that claimant had in excess of $1 million in claims in less than 12 months. Unfortunately, this is why your employees have health insurance, because it provides them the security and provides them the access to the care. You never know when someone can turn for worse, and I think this slide is really showing you how quickly things can change when you are exposed or have certain conditions. And this really shows, if you look at the 2023, if you take out removing claimant number 1 and number 2, you yield $2.3 million. Nobody could have projected this, unfortunately. So that's where we are here.
So here's the bottom line. From our perspective, we aren't collecting enough through the working rates. And what the working rates are what the employees, retirees, and the city puts into the healthcare plan. So to fund fiscal year 25, these are the projections. Currently collecting through the city and employee working rates, $24.4 million, and projection for 2025 fiscal year is $28.4. So that is a difference of 3.9 needed for fiscal year 2025. We also wanted to share a historical look at the city's increases to health insurance working rates. Again, that is what employees are paying plus what the city's contributing. Overall, as you can see, for several years, the adopted increases were 3% or less. I cannot speak to what happened prior to my partnership with the city, but since then, we've taken a deep dive into the data, and I'm presenting the information we have available so you can make an informed decision. As you can see, we came on board in 2023. It shows the recommendation based on projection and the approved amount. Again, we're not alone, and as you can see here, other municipalities are facing the same increases as the city of Manchester, and we are not alone. Our overall recommendation, an increase in health working rate, 16%. Dental, plus 5% increase to working rates, which is the equivalent to $90,000. But our suggestion is to focus on funding the health care, getting caught up with the rate increase and keep dental rates flat, so no increase there.
And if I could, I wanted to provide some additional context for you all with regard to what a 16% increase actually would mean, because I know it's a big number. It's not a number we want to be presenting. It's not a number that employees want to hear. And I'm sure it's not a number that you all want to hear. But in real dollars, I wanted to provide what this would mean. So this is based on an 80-20 cost share. There are different cost shares in different union contracts. It's either the city pays 80, employee pays 20, or it's 85-15, or it's 83-17. For simplicity purposes, I'm providing you the 80-20 cost share. This is quote unquote the worst case scenario from an employee perspective if they're paying 20%. We only have 2 plans that our employees can choose from now. It's an HMO plan or the high deductible plan. If you focus on the column that is highlighted all the way to the right, that indicates what the additional amount would be per week that would come out of the employee's paycheck if we adopted a 16% increase. So, for example, if someone's on the HMO plan, just a single person, it's an additional $7.06 per week. 2-person plan for the HMO, it's an additional $14.19. On a family plan, and it's an additional $18.98. For the high deductible plan, same calculations. Single plan, it would be an additional $6.69 a week. 2-person, $13.42. Family plan, $17.26. So I just wanted to provide that context, what this would mean in real dollars to an employee's paycheck.
Lastly, we wanted to share some of our ongoing efforts. Lisa mentioned earlier that we collectively are always analyzing the information and discussing new ideas. Sometimes it's daily, to be honest. And so a few of the ongoing efforts we just wanted to share, high level again, ideas that we are considering a claims audit. There are also other strategic vendor partners out there that analyze specifically high-cost claimants up to a certain level and do a deep dive into those claims. We mentioned the population health management strategy, which again, it's preventive. It's not the quick fix, but we do believe that it will show cost savings in the future. And then as we approach union negotiations up and coming, talk about different plan design discussions, just things on our radar.
And that's it for our prepared presentation. I know that this is a lot of information, and we are happy to answer questions, engage in discussion. Again, that's why we all wanted to be up here. I did want to mention that open enrollment starts May 1st because we bill a month in advance for premiums. So we have a plan year that starts July 1st, so we have to start billing for premiums in June, which is why we do open enrollment the whole month of May. So we are here asking for the board's consideration and a motion to adopt the proposed rate increase or whatever the board would desire. Our role here is simply to provide the information, understanding we're not the decision makers. So, thank you.
Thank you all for the presentation. Chairman Lavasser.
Thank you, Mayor. Does that start on July 1st? The increase
Yes,
is
yeah.
whatever it would be that we would, do you have a monetary number that would, the total amount? Is that per plan or per person or just per plan?
So the numbers that I provided on the screen out of the weekly paycheck
I
would
see
be-
that it says 669 and then 1342, 1726. So that's
Correct.
just per employee.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And do you have an actual total for what that increase will be?
For the year.
Yeah.
for the employee, so for example, if an employee was on a single plan, HMO would be an annual
Yeah,
increase of $366.
No, I can do the math times 12. I just
Yeah.
wondered if you just had a global number.
No.
You won't have.
I didn't.
You would have the global number, but it would matter as to what percentage it would be that we would argue for. These numbers are based on a 16%, I would guess.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Right, so just to keep it into kind of perspective, if we need to raise $4 million, if we were to raise this by 16%, the amount coming into the plan would be $800,000 from the employees
Okay.
and $3.2 million from the city.
Is that 3.2 million already included in the mayor's budget?
So the mayor, it's sitting on the floor. So the mayor had included $1.4 million, and the reason the mayor included $1.4 million was because that was what we were projecting that we were going to have for a shortfall this year. He didn't have these numbers, so he said, the best I can do is just cover where I know I'm at now, and that's what he did. So if you were to use the 1.4, then we would need the difference between 1.4 and 3.2 if we were to fund this at 16%.
And if we went to 8%, then we would have to come up with 3.6.
So if you went to 8%, if the mayor put $1.4 million, knowing what he knew then, we would need another $200,000 from the
right,
city, and that would be $1.6 million, and the employees would contribute $400,000.
Right, but I was minusing the 400 and adding it to the 3.2, is that correct? 3.2 that you said we would have our share?
So what you'd be subtracting from the 3.2 our share, if it was at 8%, it would be $1.6 million. You would be reducing from that.
Well, we would be on the hook for the 400 more if we only charged 400, because you've got it into your formula as 800.
Oh. So what you're saying then is that if we did the 8%, how much more would the city need to do besides?
Another 4.
So for every percent, it's another $250,000 that the city would have to do above and beyond the 1.6. So how much would that take to get there?
Okay. And we have to vote on that, not tonight, though. We can do it at the next meeting.
So last year, we did do it at the second meeting in April. I would ask for the board's consideration if possible. A vote tonight would be best-case scenario for HR, because we are using a new system this year, Munis, for open enrollment, so we're building it for the first time. So we're looking for the most amount of time to be able to input the rates and make sure everything works correctly. If the board, however, elects to wait until the next meeting, then we will make it work.
Okay. I'll let some other people go, and then I have another question later.
Alderman Sapienza.
Thank you. When I look at page 4 of your presentation, I see the numbers for fiscal year '24. It says through February 2024, the city spent $16.9 million. So if that's $16.9 million, that's 9 months, right? So how are you getting to 28 million on page 9 from 16.9 in 9 months, right?
Yep.
I mean, are you expecting a $12 million quarter coming up? If I project 16.9,
So I think
I think that 28 million is for FY '25.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
And that 16.9 is over the 8 months, so you'd have 4 more months. You'd have March, April, May, June. Right, because this is just data through February, so
right, my question is, if you spent 16.9 million in 9 months,
8 months. So that'd be 8 months.
And if you, on page 15, if you move forward to
Okay, 8
page
months.
15 on the back. Oh, it's not opening all the way. That's okay. It shows you what, it's a breakdown of the renewal estimate versus the projected expected claims. So
what page is that?
page 15.
The very last page.
And what are you pointing out?
Okay, so, oh, you couldn't pull it up all the way?
For some reason, I can't get it to expand.
Okay, that's all right. So if we look all the way to the bottom under the financial summary, you can see revenue generated through working rates for the active population is 21.6 million. Revenue generated through working rates for early retirees is 2.7, so that's totaling 24. When you look at the actual renewal estimate all the way to the top, so that's all the projected claims, the admin fees, stop loss, we're putting in the employer contribution to the HSA accounts, PCORI fees, and then we subtract out the estimated rebates. That renewal estimate comes to a 28.4 increase. So we're collecting 24.4 million in working rates, and the pre-renewal is calling for 28.4.
Thank you.
Alderman Long?
Thank you, Your Honor. A couple of questions. Would it be helpful if we revisited our stop loss insurance?
That's something we do every single year. We take it out to the market. There is, if we were to carve out the stop loss from Anthem, because right now it's under Anthem, there would be a fee. So we take that into consideration as well. But one thing when USI came on board that we did was we asked for a rate cap of 40%. So we will never get more than a 40% increase in our stop loss. And there are no new lasers allowed either. So we have a great stop loss contract. So we know could there be wiggle room at some point with the total stop loss premium fees that we're projecting right now, projecting forward? That would be a question for Anthem. But we have looked at the worst case scenario. Every single year we've gone out, we've gotten declined to quotes from the stop loss carriers.
And are we at 250,000? Is that our stop loss?
The stop loss, the individual stop loss is 250,
Okay,
yes.
So on page, what page was that where you had the numbers of high payouts?
Page 8.
Is that actually what we're paying, or we don't?
No, we paid back those numbers through the stop loss, yes.
Okay, so.
And just to make a statement, Anthem continues to be the most competitive when it comes to the stop loss city. And USI do take this out to the market, but we continue to provide you the best stop loss rate.
Well, I appreciate that, but we need more aggressiveness. Another question, if I may, Your Honor.
Please.
With the high claims, the high-cost claims, is there anything we could look at? I mean, you know, we have a substantial amount of lives, 2,815. Can we look at, in the high-cost claims and look for cutting deals? Is that a possibility?
We do that for you already, unfortunately. That these folks, when you look at on the page 8 that I showed you, the high-cost claimants, to get to that level, there are many different approvals that employees and their dependents have to go through. So we try to walk the fine line and not just allow them to just go down to Boston right away. First, try to see if there's any other situations here that can be taken care of. When you get to the point where they are in their condition management, these people had to be here. Unfortunately, they had to be here.
I mean, any thoughts of coordinating with other municipalities that we could come in with 10,000 lives?
There are ideas around stop loss, pulling the stop loss together with other municipalities where you could get better price based on the share size. And certain things like Health Trust does when it comes to that, yes. But when it comes to raw claim dollars, because you're self-funded, these are your claims. We try to manage them the best we can. But once again, most of these claimants, I personally know and have helped them. They needed to be here.
Okay, so quickly for Sharon, the 1% is 250,000. So if we cut it 8%, we'd be looking for $2 million. However, the mayor's got 1.4, so we'd be looking for 600,000.
So if the mayor put in 1.4, you'd be looking for 200,000 because you'd be raising rates the city's portion would be 1.6, and the employees would be 400,000.
Okay, so if we did 8%, we'd be looking for 200,000.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. I don't know how she got there, but I'll take it. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Alderman O'Neill.
Thank you. My good friend, Milan, been with us a long time.
We sure have.
Thank you. Milan, go to page 6 that you spoke on, if you would. I have learned over the years there's a story behind things from you and from your colleagues at Anthem. Just to say there's cancer doesn't tell me anything. And I know we got to be careful about HIPAA laws, but knowing what type of cancer it is helpful, or what types of cancer are driving these claims is helpful, so we know where to focus prevention. So I don't know if that's something can be talked about publicly, or...
I'm more than welcome to have conversations like that behind the closed doors.
Okay.
I have been at this for now 13 years, and I have seen certain instances where we had these discussions and we got many different phone calls day after telling
fair
us
enough.
you're talking about us. But yes, we know, we have the
Fair
data,
enough,
right?
but there's a story behind,
Yes.
and that's...
Yes.
What are the cancers that are driving this? Is there, or is it various? It's a pretty broad statement, just cancer. And I'm just gonna say, and sometimes the skills needed are beyond anything here in New Hampshire.
Yes.
Nothing related to the city, but I had a family member the treatment she needed had to be done in Boston.
Yeah.
It wasn't the cancer, it was a radiation wound that was gonna kill her. Couldn't be treated here, had to be in Boston. She was not a city employee. But, so that's what there's a story, what are the cancers and what can we do? You know, breast cancer, prostate cancer, whatever it may be. You know, what are the cancers, lung cancer, whatever it may be. What's the story?
If you're asking if there are any trends with the cancer diagnoses that we're seeing, over the last 2 years, there hasn't been any notable trends. What has been the issue is when the diagnosis was taking place, what staging it was at, and that's really where we're seeing the cost drivers.
I would also add, I think, and now I'm not speaking for the record, I'm not speaking for your population, but there is a trend out there. Of course, we all know, breast cancers are they're out there. It happens at a higher rate than we have seen them before. There's also lung cancers have been upticking. Colon cancers in younger population have started upticking, unfortunately, even in 40s. I just turned 40 myself, and I'm starting to see claims 40-year-olds turning with colon cancer. So there are a few different cancers. When it comes to your population, I'm more than happy to speak behind the closed doors. We can even prepare a presentation to go into detail. I just, due to public, I don't.
Yeah, it's a topic for non-public.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, but that's what I think is important, because just to say, the cancer claims are up doesn't tell me anything.
Yeah.
What cancers are up?
Okay.
The second item is orthopedic related in that same list?
More MS, yes.
And then what's the last one mean?
This is actually a good one. This is just folks doing their right things, seeing their primary care doctors, their specialists, and getting their wellness screenings done. So we love to see this category up there because, and I'll divert a little bit, and I applaud Fire Department and Chief Cashin for doing what we have done with Dartmouth, Anthem, and Fire, and screening all the fire employees for a few different things. One is skin cancer and lung cancer. We did it mutually together, helped each other, and we screened over, I believe, 350 people, and we actually found one person with cancer, and that person has been taken care of, and they're back to work. So I strongly do believe in adult wellness compliance screenings and promoting early screenings. So we will stand by and help you in that endeavor.
Continue, Your Honor. Just a few more.
Please.
Milan, on that same slide, the 76.7, that's all members of the plan, not just the...
Yeah, and I'm actually even seeing some really, really interesting shifts when it comes to that these members are getting very educated, and they're using right providers. I would say we have, in this city, we have many different providers which are phenomenal, but there are some that are less costly, and members are starting to pick really less costly providers to go see, like Derry Medical Center, which is phenomenal to see because that helps with overall claims when it comes to your population.
Do we think that, I listen to my primary care physician. When he tells me to do something, I do it. Do we think is there any data that shows our employees are not following the guidance of their primary care?
Not necessarily at all. I think some providers do better than others, just like with anything. I think from Anthem perspective, we're starting to do more creative things with our friendly providers, which we're focusing how we contract with them. We are starting to aggressively contract on value-based care, which means, hey, we're not just going to pay you for visiting, for a visit. We're actually going to pay you based how you manage that patient, right? And we're at the same time providing our providers data, live data. So, for example, if Milan went over the last 2 weeks and visited 5 different emergency rooms, trying to find something that he was looking for, Anthem would be sending that data to my primary care and asking my primary care to call me and come see me and say, hey, what's going on? Why have you seen 5 different emergency rooms? So we're starting to do very creative things when it comes to that, which also helps you because we're paying those providers based on what type of a care they're providing to your members.
All right, one final question, Your Honor. In the slide on, and I don't know who this is for, but on ongoing efforts, found in my time with the city, and I had a little break in action, but we need to create, and I don't think we have, department advocates, train the trainers, because the opportunities to get employees to come in the city hall are limited. If you're Chief Aldenberg's not pulling cruiser routes off to go in and to sit at a training here. That has to be done at the police station in the locker rooms. And, Tim Colordy's not pulling people off picking up garbage every day and bringing them in. Same Chief Cashin. And that's our combined, that's our biggest employee block of those 3 departments, Public Works, Fire, and Police. We have to create these advocates within the departments. Smart Sharper is one. You and I can remember having those conversations over the year. And I can remember Nicole Vale's going out in its shift change and, in the firehouses. I don't know if that's going on, and that's what I think we need to do.
If I could address that, Alderman, we don't have a formal advocate program, I would suggest, but I am proud to say that Michelle in my office and our other folks work very hard to partner with all of the pay clerks across the city. So essentially the HR person in each department, particularly the bigger departments, as well as the union representatives. Yep. We communicate with them regularly. We send them information ahead of when it goes out to their employees. We ask them to share it with their members. We're doing a series of benefits fairs where we'll have all our vendors available for the employees to come visit. We will walk them through the online enrollment process hand in hand. We're providing training. We're doing as much outreach as we can.
I agree with you, and that was not directed at Michelle because she is fabulous.
Yep.
What we got to do is get that first phone call to be made, and that's not what's happening. Sending them emails doesn't do any good. Unless the police department are getting an email from the chief or assistant chief or the division commander, they're probably not looking at them. That's my conversations over there. Same with fire department. Tim's people coming in at the end of shift. They're not, I don't even know if they all have emails. I don't think they do. So
Right.
how we get that first step.
Yep.
Once Michelle is fabulous, and I agree. You make that call to Michelle, you get an answer.
Yep.
And you get direction. How do we get more to make that call or email Michelle on? That's where I think this train the trainer or advocates within the department to capture them at shift change and coming in, in the locker room before is so important. All right, coming off my soapbox. Thank you, Your Honor.
back to Alderman Sapienza, and then Barry, Vincent.
So my question, Sharon, is, you know, you gave us the example of the 80-20 split and how a 16% increase would affect that. So my question is, how do you reconcile that at the end? Because you're basing this on a projection, so the claims could be higher or lower. So if I'm an employee and I'm supposed to be paying 20%, and we come up with the number before the year starts, how do I know at the end of the year I paid 20% and not 16% or 24%?
As an employee?
Well, as anybody, yeah. How does the city know they paid their 80%, and how does the employee know they paid their 20?
So what we do is we establish the premium, right? We set the premium, and then the employee pays 20% of that amount, and the city kicks in the other 80%. So part of this rate setting process, and I'll let Leanna speak to, she wanted to talk to how the projections actually work.
I
you
don't
know, a
think
little
I
bit
answered
behind
your
the
question
numbers.
before. On page 15, you had asked how we got from like that 16 million up to 28 again, and I wanted to share that we have to trend forward where we're at right now.
Right.
And we can see behind the scenes also any claims that have been incurred or are out there but haven't been applied yet. So between the information and the claims feeds that we have and the information that Anthem has, that is the projection, the 28. And I didn't say that eloquently before, so I apologize.
Right, so my question remains, if we're supposed to have an 80-20 split, how do we know we have an 80-20, it's not an 80-20 split of the cost, it's an 80-20 split of the projection?
It's an 80-20 split of the premium.
So we take the,
Projected
we
rate.
take the projection and we build our working rates. The working rate is what the city is paying on a weekly basis and what an employee is contributing on a weekly basis. We base the split off of that amount, the 80-20 for the year.
And it's not reconciled at the end of the year, right? So you don't know what you're basing your split on the projection, and then whatever comes in at the end, it could be more or less than 80-20.
And if it is more, we have a reserve fund where those funds go to. That hasn't happened in quite a while. We've been behind the 8 ball every year for quite some time. And if we're behind in what we're collecting, the fees are more, that's when I'm coming to you saying we're over plan, like we are now.
Yeah.
We're projected to be 1.4 million over plan currently now. I'll have a new reconciliation. Maybe that will go down a little, maybe it'll go up a little, but
Right.
that's where we were. But just to take the 16.9 that you were looking at, they said that's 8 months, that's about $2.1 million a month, right? We have 4 months left, that'd be 8.4. Once you add those together, we're at 25.3 million.
Yeah, 25.4,
So, I mean, you're
right.
right there again.
Yeah.
It's just,
I think the point
And that's-
is the
and that's
employee
not
never
that-
pays more than 20%, even if you're over.
All right, thank you.
Alderman Barry.
Thank you, Your Honor. I guess one of the positive things, and I'm a true believer that Smart Shopper is a great idea and a great incentive. It looks like from 2022 to 2023, the employees have done really well, where it's saved like $180,000, which is good. Now, out of the ones that you presented, the ones that are ill, the employees, do you reach out to them, and I think I've asked this in the past, but do you reach out to them and give them ideas of where they can go to offset some of that, like Smart Shoppers? So, you know, because I hope they know that there are incentives out there that they can get reimbursed for going somewhere else other than where they may be going and getting the same exact treatment.
Yeah, I think this AI technology, and you have heard words chat GPT and all of it. Smart Shopper is becoming smarter as well, right? So they have the data, right? They understand who's getting what types of services, and they are proactively going after the folks that they potentially might need colonoscopy or MRI coming up, and sending them marketed material saying, hey, you might have an appointment coming up. Hey, just don't forget, go to Lab Quest Diagnostics on one of the more cost-effective facility. So Smart Shopper is proactively mining the data, looking for what's happening and trying to reach out to those folks, yes.
And your nurse case management
Yes,
when they're
absolutely.
involved
But
as well.
a point is, this was, if you remember, Smart Shopper program started here as a pilot program. This is the first account where it started. This was the best year we just had.
No, and just to follow up what Alderman O'Neill was talking about, that may be, make the person that he's talking about be, an advocate for each department. You may have someone that's benefited, if they're willing to talk about, what their benefit was to other people that are in their department or within the city.
Right.
To let them know, what they've received back for being smart and
Right.
going to places that you're gonna get the same, lab work. I mean, lab work is lab work.
Yeah.
Whether you go to Quest or you go to Dartmouth Hitchcock, you're getting, they're taking your blood. And, but you're getting reimbursed for something if you go to Quest or other facilities. And the same thing with MRIs or any other procedures that you may benefit from, that may be $250 or $500 that you get, reimbursed.
Yeah, I think it would be, in my opinion, I invite you all to attend one of our open sessions that are going to be coming in April and May, and you'll be surprised how educated some of these employees are. And we actually have some of the leaders in departments speak about their specific occasions and how they saved multiple dollars by using Smart Shoppers.
Michelle has champions in most of the departments who will actually speak to their story and successes.
And just so you know, Lisa, Michelle and your whole staff is awesome. I know every time that I've ever reached out to them for myself or others, they've been right on it. And if they're not in, you leave a message, they're going to be back in touch with you within an hour. So it's pretty good. Just one follow-up, Your Honor. The problem that I have is, I did the numbers on the, it's 16% weekly for the HMO. Single comes out to like 367 per year. The two-person 737 and a family 986. That's for the HMO, and then for the HSA it's 347 single, 697 for a two-person, and 897 for family. So it's substantial for the employees to hit them with that, especially where we just went through contracts and they, it's a game of give and take, and we know that, when you're negotiating, you give them a COLA or you give them a pay raise, but you also take back from health.
Right.
And now we're going to hit them midstream with this, and I know Pat Long brought up 8%. It's tough, and it's unfortunate we're here. And especially where, this is the first I heard of it, so it's kind of tough on me to come up with an answer or a decision for myself tonight. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Vincent.
Thank you, Your Honor. I agree with my peer, Alderman Barry, on that. That was where I was going to. I looked at these numbers, and I think it's tough to ask people. I mean, let's put on our typical employee hat, and they're not looking at, $7 a paycheck. They're looking at $367 a year, because in the world we live in, we have to plan accordingly. I know we all shop at grocery stores. That's all I got to say about that. So I agree. I do think this is such a I have a hard time making a vote on projections. Even though I understand the projections, 16% is huge. That's a huge number. We're in a budgetary period. We're running numbers. We're crunching numbers. I just don't think realistically, I cannot make a decision today on this, because there's still factors in play with the budget and whatnot. So I think that's a lot. And I understand what you're saying. So if we project what we're projecting and we're under that, that's good. So I guess I got confused. What happens then? So if we project this high number, and let's say people have used Smart Shopper more, and we save money, and I mean, when you tell somebody you're going to charge them an extra $1,000 a year, it's going to motivate them to use Smart Shopper. I get that. But if we go below that number, what happens with that number?
I think that's a good thing, being self-funded, because you're the person that pays the claims that they come. If the claims do not come, you just omitted paying those additional funds, and that money stays in the budget.
And if we go over the projected,
And that's where
that's,
Right. So if we come in under budget, the amount that we have in the budget for healthcare, not spended, goes to the reserve account. And we haven't done that in quite some time.
Right.
But you know that when I've been doing the budget projections, right now I have $1 million that's being covered by surplus because we're short. We're going to exhaust that budget and then we have to pay for it somehow. Now, we have a reserve, but that should always be kind of the last resort. If you're making surplus, I mean, the mayor had to deal with a $1.7 million hole in his budget because so much surplus was used. So while I agree with using some surplus, $1.7 million is kind of a lot, and we struggled with that. So you want to kind of get as close to this as you can. Now, I'm speaking candidly. The mayor put in $1.4 million. He put in $1.4 million not because of this, he didn't know about this, but, so $1.4 million is 7%, would be a 7% increase. That's already in the budget. You're
Right.
not doing anything.
Right.
He already put that there. That's a 7% increase. Then Alderman Long said, well, if you did 8%, it's $200,000 more. We're now at 8%. 16% is a lot. It's really a lot for me. It's a lot for me to look at that money. It's a lot. I mean, do I think we need to fully fund healthcare? I mean, we are down, but I can't even see going past 12. I mean, that would be funding it, because I do think that it's a projection.
right.
Things could come in a
Then
little
why
bit
didn't we
lower.
say 12?
And I'm willing to
Yeah.
roll the dice on some of it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's money. And maybe that's just because I work in finance.
I get all that. I mean,
Right.
if we're talking
Right,
12, why
right.
didn't we say 12? Why did we say 16?
Well,
why-
I'm just talking, because I'm showing you, this is what our experts are saying. I am not an expert in healthcare.
All right. No, I
right.
get it all. I'm just
If
trying
I
to
had a crystal
rationalize it
ball,
for when we
you know,
tell
this
these
would be
employees
fabulous.
that
I don't.
And
it's
we-
just a lot of money.
The city is certainly, we're in a unique position, right, because we're self-funded. So we are the ultimate payer of the claims. So all of this is based on projection in order to try to figure out what would we need for next year to pay the claims to not be, to run
this
over the
position
healthcare
again.
line, right? So there is an art and a science to it. And so it's really comes down to, we view our role as, look, the data's the data, here's the data, we want you to have the data so that you know what we would project to need to fully fund the plan. We understand if you look back at the history of what the increases have been, up until FY '23, when USI came on board, they were, 3%, 2.7%, that sort of thing. We are, to be frank, kind of digging out of a hole. And so, last year USI recommended 10% and the board decided on 7%. And we are running at a deficit this year. So I just give you all of that for context.
I
And
appreciate
it
it.
very well could work out to be 16%.
Right.
I just don't know.
If I may have one more, Your Honor. Let's say that the vote is not made tonight. What's your time frame to tell, realistically, how do we work this with the employees? If we make the vote in 2 weeks versus tonight, is that enough time for you to get this information, to consolidate your reports, to push it out to employees? Because May 1 is right around the corner, and I know that's when we open enrollment, so we need to have these numbers finalized by that time period. Can you do it if we voted in 2 weeks versus tonight?
We can do it. It will be tight, but we can do it. Yeah. I would like to give employees the benefit of the
course.
most time.
As would I.
Of course.
As would I.
But my folks are top-notch, as Alderman Barry noted, and so we will get it done. We will get it built in the system if you all decide to wait till the next meeting to vote. But I do need a number by that meeting, that night, so that we can get it going for open enrollment.
And this affects the retirees as well?
It does,
The
yes.
same, everything's
The same
retired
rules
vets.
apply to them. Yep, whatever we charge the
Okay.
employees, the total premium gets applied to the retirees as well. Thank you for pointing that out.
I do appreciate
Lisa,
your time.
do we want to just re-clarify that and say this applies to early retirees?
Early
not-
retirees, yes, my
I
apologies.
just don't want any of my retirees out
Milan.
there thinking
already-
about their increase.
Okay, I got you.
Yes, so no one who's on Medicare or Medicare supplemental plan. This is just the city's plan for folks up to the age of 65.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Alderman Terrio.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to understand the numbers, either to Sharon or to yourself, Your Honor. So We're estimating it to go up by 16%. The city's funding 7%, and the employees are funding 9%. Is that correct?
No, that's not, so the mayor funded 1.4 million only to fund what we thought would be the deficit this year. He hadn't seen any of this. So then I said, you know, in my head, I'm thinking, well, if $1.4 million is already in there, what would that be now that I know these numbers? It'd be 7%. So the city would be, 7% is 1.4 million, and then I think it's, I have it somewhere here. 7%, 350,000 would come from the employees, so the total would be 1,750,000 of this.
$4 million.
Yeah, $4 million.
Almost $4 million.
Okay, so if the mayor put $1.4 million into the budget, just saying, what I know right now is we're over plan. Now that we know the numbers, what would, on the city side, $1.4 million be? It'd be 7% of this $4 million. The city would pay that, and then we get $350 for the employees. And then at 12%, because that's, you know, I'm trying to use round numbers, that'd be $1 million more to the budget.
So, Sharon, I'm
Because
still
the
confused.
1.4 is in there.
Where's the other money of the $4 million coming from?
It doesn't. So now, if we go over plan, we have a reserve, but there's only 3.3 million in that reserve. Or we can try to cover some of that with surplus. I mean, the mayor's budget's very tight. I don't know how much surplus we're going to get in '25.
So the city has to pay for it no matter what.
Right.
The question is, where does it come from?
Right.
Is there a
Right.
heavier cost shift or increase to the city employee side, or do we dip into the reserves?
So that's my question to you then.
Yeah.
What is your plan? Like, where are you seeing the money coming from?
So, I mean, that's a conversation for all of us to have. I mean, there's a consensus, there has to be a consensus on the board, because if we're going to increase rates, that's not something I can do unilaterally. That's something the board has to determine, what is that increase that we want? Or how much do we want to dip into the reserves and not impact the employees?
All right, thank you.
Alderman Sapienza.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Briefly, just to be clear, when we say increasing the rates on the employees, we're strictly talking about non-affiliated, correct?
No, this is for all employees.
Well, the union employees we have contractual obligations.
So we have a contractual obligation to provide them with certain plans, but the city set the rates. And what we've contracted with them is their cost share, right?
Right.
So do they pay 20%? Do they pay 17%? Do they pay
Right.
15%? So that doesn't change. The
Okay, but you're
cost share
talking about
split.
the
But
overall bigger
premium
number.
can change.
Okay, gotcha, thank you.
Yep.
Back to Alderman Sapienza, and then Morgan.
I'm still struggling with that 80-20 split, right? If the city is putting in 1.4 million, that should represent 80%. So really, I don't think we should ask the employees for more than their 20%, which would be about 350.
1.4 million is 80% of 1.750,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So if you're increasing rates by 7%, that 1,750 is subtracted from the $4 million. So you're still looking for like 2,250,000.
Yeah, my point is, though, if the city's supposed to put in 80, and they're only putting in 1.4 million.
Which is 80% of what the city,
Right.
and the employees are doing the same thing.
Well, not if we're asking them to put in 16%.
No. So
Right.
that was just, it would be, the city would be doing 7%, and the employees would be doing 7%, and that's what brings you to the 1.75. So you're well short, sure.
Well, you're one short of the projection, but my point is, if you have an 80-20 split, right, whatever the city puts in, that should represent 80%. And if the city's not putting in, we shouldn't, if you have an 80-20 split, the employee's share is 25% of the employer's share, right? 20 into 80.
Well, if we were doing
1/4.
16%, then the city
No,
should.
we're not talking about
okay, all right.
16%, we're talking about 80-20. If it's the city's position that 1.4 million is 80%, we shouldn't ask the employees for more than 350. That's my point.
Correct.
Correct.
So it would be, the city would be contributing 1.4 at 7%, and the employees would be contributing 350, which would total 7%.
Right, in the starting.
Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't
And my
understand.
point is, the base that what we should we should charge the employee the same the city's putting in, not have the city put in 1.4 and then come along and ask
Correct.
you know,
Right.
but basically what you're asking for the city, the employee to put in half as much as the city's
No,
putting in now.
They move together.
Yeah, they were moving together. We weren't asking for employees.
If the contribution goes up for the city employee, the amount of money that goes into the budget has to increase in a comparable rate. They move
Yes.
together.
So the employees would, if the city was putting in 1.4 million, which is what the mayor's already
Which is
done.
that's my follow-up question is, if we vote to charge the employees 16%, right?
Right, if you
Is
did.
is the budget that gonna force the budget to include their 80%?
Well, if we're
Or is
raising.
that still a number we can move around?
I mean, we're self-funded, so last year, we put in a little bit more money to keep the rates lower for the employee, but we threw a little bit more up to try to get it into the health line, but it wasn't enough. I mean, if we were gonna charge employees 16%, the city should be 3.2. To
Right.
be even, right? I
Right.
mean,
Right, again, keeping in mind too that it's a hard concept to wrap your mind around because the city's not actually paying a premium anywhere, right? Like the employee is paying a premium out of their paycheck. The city's portion is 80% of the cost of what we're saying the working rate is, but the money's not going anywhere until it's paid out in claims.
Right,
Right.
but I'm thinking like an employee. Right now, I'm thinking if I'm an employee
Right.
and I have to put in 20%, I want to see my employer's 80%, and what I'm seeing is 1.4 million. So I'm saying I shouldn't be charged more than $350.
Right.
And that's just math. That's not hard to wrap your head
Right.
around.
That's exactly what I have.
Yep.
That's 7%, correct.
Right.
Right.
So until I see that budget line go up more than 1.4, I'm not willing to go over 7.
Alderman Morgan.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Lisa, a question for you.
Sure.
So you extended the service agreement with USI. Did you go out and get any quotes from any other providers or brokers to maybe get better savings, better rates? Because we're going into this, process. And no disrespect, but I just, obviously you want to
Sure.
get quotes on.
Absolutely. So I had a conversation with the mayor about this much earlier this year. And just so that we're clear, the city doesn't actually pay USI anything. USI gets paid through commissions, if you will, from the savings that they bring us, their contracts with other vendors, that sort of thing. So it's a zero cost proposition to the city, if you will, understanding that different vendors provide different, bring different other vendors to the table, that sort of thing. So because of where we are in the HR department, quite selfishly, with the compensation study, with our change over our whole HRIS system, and the fact that I believe, since I've been here, USI has provided great service to us, and we're in the middle of considering a number of initiatives going into union negotiations. We didn't feel like it was a good time to go through an RFP process for a new brokerage service, which would be a major undertaking to do that.
Well, I
So
can
we just
yeah.
extended the agreement for another year.
Sure, I can appreciate that, but would you think that it's a possibility that we could save some money if we had better quotes or other quotes with rates? There's other companies out there, and if we didn't really, go down there and look at that.
And we're absolutely, willing to do that, evaluate whether it would be a good time to do that in the next fiscal year. It's just for all the reasons that I mentioned, we decided it wasn't the time to do that. And again, the city doesn't pay USI anything. And it's my understanding that the previous brokers, it was the same sort of arrangement. It's how the brokerage agreements usually work. So it's not costing the city anything. They are, and USI's compensation from how they receive it is capped as well. So we feel like we're getting very good service and a good deal is what I can say tonight.
Okay, if I could, one more question. If we increase the co-insurance to a 70-30, what would the savings be, for example, for the city? Deductible was a little higher.
Well, I'm sure we can get those numbers for you, but just I want to set the stage. The the 80-20, the 85-15, the 83-17, those are set in the union contracts right now. So unless and until we renegotiate that, there certainly would be, the more employees participate and put in, of course, the less then the city would contribute, not contribute, but be on the hook for, if you will, changing the cost share.
Questions here. Alderman Cantor.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have a couple of questions. Well, actually, I was wondering, going off of Alderman O'Neill, that everyone has a story, and I was wondering about the story of COVID, and if you have the data on if the uptick in turbo cancers is affected, whether they took the shot or didn't take the shot. Also, how we reacted to COVID with the lockdowns and our mental health, all of that, like how has that impacted us, today? Is that part of the reason why our insurance has gone up?
That's a good question. It's still very early to try to partner how that all works, but we do have some data to show you how many of you employees had COVID and things like that. Long COVID is a new thing as well. We track that for sure. So we do have some of that data that I could provide behind the closed doors for sure.
And if I could just add, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. We're certainly not immune, I think everyone would agree, to the delay in care that some people
Yes.
experience due to COVID. And so we're catching things at a later stage, perhaps. So.
Yes, that was my big concern, is a lot of us couldn't get to the doctors, so the
Sure.
early detection affected us as well.
Yes, and you just have to keep in consideration also that municipality demographics tend to be older compared to the other private businesses. So that has a little bit of effect as well to overall what's happening in the claims right now.
And I mean, there is good news with ivermectin being really good for a long COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really great. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Alderman O'Neill.
Yeah, I was going to ask a somewhat similar question, because I think access to healthcare was very difficult during COVID, and is there that's a great point Alderman Cantor just made about that. Is this uptick because people didn't get to the doctors in that time period?
So what we're seeing from other groups as well, right? So one of the slides that said, you're not alone, right? So there's something that's happened with delayed care. We truly believe that there was an impact, because what we're seeing now is people are not going in with stage 1, stage 2, it's stage 3, stage 4. The impact of that and trying to quantify it becomes a very difficult study, but we do believe that there was delayed care, and that has increased costs for knee replacements, hip replacements that
were postponed.
Exactly. So there's multiple factors to that.
And this is national data too. You can see it from United Healthcare and others. They're specifically talking about this in their quarterly earnings, where they're definitely seeing orthopedic claims in uptake for the population between 50 and 65 due to delayed care.
Thank you. Well, just a couple, I just want to say, my Irish guilt was sitting here like I bashed Michelle earlier, and Michelle is fabulous, and I just want to clarify that. She's fabulous, so. And then I just want to say, Milan, I think, was around when Anthem, there was that short period where Anthem was not the third-party administrator, whatever the right word is, and the employees encouraged us to go back to Anthem. And I just want to say thank you, because you continue to provide high-quality healthcare options for our employees. So I want to thank you both for that.
Thank you, Alderman. Anthem continues to stand with city. We are in the city. We have over 350 employees right in that building on Elm Street. We support the Elm Street, and we will continue to support the city any way we can.
So, thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Chairman Lavasser.
Okay. It says here on page 15, I'd like to get to 15. I got a couple of questions. I'd like to get through them as quickly as possible so we can move on from this. I don't know if we need a motion to table this for 2 weeks, but if we do, I'll make the motion that we do not make a decision on this until the next meeting on the 16th. Whether the mayor thinks we need one or not, he can accept it. But in the first place is, this, on page 15, this is 2425 employee, per employee per month premium. Is that higher than it was a year ago? Is that a projected cost, or where does that number come from on the 172780? Top right-hand corner, per employee per month? Or is that just claims per person? So what's the premium then? We keep talking about the premium, and for some reason I thought that was the premium. And you keep talking about you set a premium. Where is the premium set?
So per employee per month, the 1,727, that is the projected claims for medical and prescription per employee per month.
Per month. So that's the
Yes.
premium, and that's how you set it, or not?
So,
So my question is, we pay 80/20.
Right.
They pay 20% of a premium. What's the premium?
so the premium,
They should want to know what their premium
the
is.
rates.
I mean.
Right,
I
right.
know what my charge is per month if I work for a normal employer, right? My employer, I mean, yeah, or if I buy it on my own, they tell me my insurance is $24,000 a year, and I know I got to pay that monthly. So what is the premium?
So
Is separate for,
it's
going to be
a
separate
separate
for a
number.
single
That-
person?
Right, that number does not represent the premium. That
Okay.
is simply the.
Claims.
Yeah, the claims. the
I wouldn't
anticipated
imagine it's
claims.
not that much. I assume it's a lot lower.
So for example, if someone is on the HMO, a single plan, the total premium is $1,108.62 a month.
Okay.
However, that's split 80/20, for example, in the examples I've been giving, or 83/17, meaning the employee is only paying 17%
So
of
this
that.
gets to my point. Here's
Yep.
the point I want to make. I don't understand why there has to be a vote by this board to increase a overage request or an increase in the price. The price is going to increase next year. Why doesn't that just get put into the 20%? So if the premium is $1,000 and our premium is expected to go to $1,200 for that particular plan because of the increase of the $4 million, if you average it out, you did it, the total number, times it by month, why do we have to take a vote? I don't see anybody in the real world getting a vote by a board that says, okay, you guys have to pay a 16% increase based on our projections, which may be right or may be wrong. Maybe you get a rebate, maybe next year you get a lower increase. Why are we taking a vote on this board if it's 20%? The 20% is the cost of the premium. If the premium goes up, they pay the 20% all the time, straightforward. It's always the same. There's no negotiation. There's no pressure on a board to say, okay, in the middle of the night, we have to decide it's 16% because costs went through the roof, or they went up because we have unfortunate instances of people getting sick, which is why we have insurance.
Right.
So why do we have this debate? Why do we have this board have to vote on this when it's 20%? The premium goes up, you pay 20% of it no matter
And it
what. If it
always-
goes down, it should go down.
It was always like that, Alderman. The
All
very
right,
first
when
time
did
that
it
they took
change?
a vote was last time we set the rate. Well, no.
No,
two
I think
times.
it was before that,
23.
yep.
23, when USI came on. That was the first time that we came before the board to ask for a vote on
Why
rate.
did you ask for a vote?
I want to say, did the mayor want to? Because it was going to be
But
high.
previously, before that,
Right.
it was, they just got their increase in the
So-
mail?
So what happened was before, it would come through and USI would meet with the finance director, which at the time was Bill, and Jane Guile.
Well,
And they would
yeah, the
sit around
previous
and they would
benefits.
determine, you know,
Right.
because sometimes Bill would look at it like I kind of did, and I'm thinking 16%, I'm kind of leaning towards 12. And they would just set the rates and you wouldn't know anything about it.
Right,
Well,
you
would.
get it when you got your increase in your next check in
It's-
July 1st.
Employees were notified
Right,
that
which
it
is
went
the
out.
way it should be done. There shouldn't be a vote by this board to do anything and make everybody feel like it's, we didn't set the rates, we don't set the premiums, we don't set the people, we don't make magic wands to make people not be sick or to be healthy. So I don't believe that this board, I don't know where it came from, I don't know if it was a policy change or a vote of a policy change, but I don't believe there was a vote on a policy change. Because I've been on this board for all these years, and I've only seen it one time, and that was last year, where, again, people are in this board, we're all felt to feel like, oh, we're sticking it down these employees' throats. Well, if you're an alderman or mayor or employees, you get an increase. In the world outside of government, you get an increase. I don't know who makes the vote, but I don't think the employees know about it until they get their premium adjustment. When Comcast goes up, they don't call me and ask me, they don't say to us, we should only give them a 6% increase because the Board of Mayor and Aldermen is going to pay the rest of it. They just give us our increase.
Right, and I think that the reason it came before the board, and I do think it was 23
Yeah.
that it came before the board, was because the rate that was coming forth was very high, and the mayor thought that the board deserved to know about it, because it was like, I don't know, was it a 10% or 11% increase? And consistently, it had been like 3, 4 maybe was high. This was crazy high.
I think you guys put it on us because you didn't want to put it on yourselves, or whoever makes those decisions. And I don't think this board has any obligation to vote on that. That should be a policy decision of the Human Resource Department, or just based on the fact that you guys do the numbers, you're the ones that are in charge of making those numbers. We can't be in control of whether there's an increase or not. And I think it's really, first of all, when he makes his budget projection number, that's a tax cap number. When we go to increase the employee's rate, that's a revenue number. So it brings in the revenue, doesn't increase the tax rate. If we decide that we're only going to charge them 50%, we have to eat it on our side. Our tax rate goes up. So it's a shared cost. It is insurance, which is a collectivism, a collective, numeric number that is shared by all the city employees who get sick, and that's why we have insurance. There are 10 unfortunate people costing a little more, but when I looked at the numbers, and I divided them out. For 23, the total cost was $24.1 million. That's $2,080,800 per month. If you look at this year, the way the projection is going, it's $112,000. So it's not a major increase, less than 9.9% increase from if you're going to project out for the next, for the eight months that we're talking about till February, from 23 till now, going into June 30th. It doesn't look like we're going to have a major increase. When you look at the $6.45 million for the 29 people, and you look at the $3 million for the 10 claimants, it looks like we're going to come in lower in the next 5 months than that claim number. If you just did I'm not sure what the projection is, but you're at $3 million for 10 claimants, which you say is above and beyond the normal cost for 18% of the 24 budget is going to 10 people, where last year 27% went towards 29 people. It looks like it's lower. So wherever the 4 million number is coming from, you guys are the experts. You're the ones that are doing these numbers. You're the ones that are putting the premiums together. Somebody makes a decision on what the premium is. It's not this board. We don't set the premium. We don't set the premium.
Right.
You set the premium. You are the one, or whoever does the FICA and the Medicare and the deductions. You guys do that in your computer. You punch the numbers in. So why do we have to play this game that we have to make this vote that it's 80-20? 20% of the premium is what they pay if there's an increase. And it should be that way. Wait, I'm not done yet, please. I still have some other points I would like to make. That's just one point I wanted to make out. On this other issue, I know that's a lot of stuff coming at you guys fast, but you're coming at us. We got 2 weeks to make a decision. We have open enrollment coming in. The mayor was told to come in with a 1.7, and that was going to be rough. You didn't tell him $4 million when he put his budget together.
We didn't have that information yet.
But you made a projection of $4 million. He put his budget together a week ago.
I didn't make this projection.
Or whoever gave him the numbers. We're talking a 1.7 to a $4 million change. That's a little bit dramatic when he put his budget together and his numbers. So you're talking about almost a $2.3 million increase since his budget numbers were given to him, and he put his budget and did his budget a week ago. And now you're coming to this board and you're saying, well, you guys vote to increase the employees' contribution when it's already contractually in there, 80-20. And whoever's on the 80-20 has to pay it. In a collective system that we're in.
I'm good.
Well, go ahead, say.
Well, I was just going to say.
I mean, you want to give me this thing that you didn't know that the projection was going to be $4 million today. You want to tell me that? Really?
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? Boy, you guys need better communication then.
Let's move it along.
We knew it was going up.
What?
We knew it was going up, but we didn't know what it was.
It's kind of a big deal. All right?
Hold on.
Well, I just want to say, the increase starts in July. I'm going to give this board a chance to make I'll make a motion to table this for 2 weeks, so we can discuss this further as a board.
I just don't, I mean, I don't think we have to take a motion
All right.
tonight. I think it's just,
All right,
we
we'll
can
do
lay
it
it
in
over
2
for
weeks.
the 2 weeks and come back.
I don't believe we should.
Yeah, and then we can get
If I-
clarification as well. Yeah, that's,
If I could just offer this, this is only my second year of participating in this process, and I was informed that it would require a vote of the BMA because it is part and parcel of the budget. So that was my understanding of why we come to the BMA with an increase like this. So I don't know if Matt Norman can add any additional context, but that is,
You came
that's my
from Londonderry.
understanding.
How did they do it in Londonderry?
Well, they were part of Health Trust, and so Health Trust told them what their increase was. To your point, we're in a unique situation here because we're self-funded. So we're determining what we think we need every year to fully fund the plan. We don't have an outside insurer, if you will, right? We're not part of the Health Trust risk pool where they tell each municipality.
Right, and you didn't come up with the number of 4 million, and neither did Ms. Wickens, right?
Right.
Our experts that we hire,
are
and
paid by-
professional
right.
that we
Yep.
hire came up with that number, correct?
Yep, yep.
Right. So you're not on the hook for their, I mean, are we going to argue with them and say, no, we just want to bring in 2.7 or 3? Is that what we're going to do? Or
Well,
that's not prudent, is it?
No, and again, I think to I guess, and maybe I'm not expressing this artfully, but because we are self-funded, we get to decide, we collectively, the city, how much we think we need every year to devote to
Right, but we already
healthcare,
have
because
we already have a contract. It's 80/20.
that's just the cost share.
Okay, that's it.
Right?
I'll leave it there.
So-
premium.
all right, so I think the best thing, okay, all right, stop. I think the best thing to do is that there are questions that we need to answer over the next 2 weeks.
Sure.
I don't think that a consensus is going to be drawn tonight, so I think we revisit this in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yes.
I just have a quick question. How many, what's the percentage of people that get the health insurance? And is there any incentive for the employees to jump on their spouse's insurance?
Yes, we do.
To give the city a break?
Yep, we do provide an employee opt-out amount, if you will, of $4,000 a year if they elect not to take the city's insurance. That is also something that's been negotiated with the union. So that's also something that can be changed to further incentivize people. These are all things that we're discussing as we go forward.
Awesome. I just
Okay.
know how expensive insurance is, so I get it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Last one, and then we'll move on.
I want to thank you for bringing this to us tonight. I want to thank the 2 department heads, and I want to thank the experts from Anthem. What the chairman failed to understand is, you're asking us to approve a projection. A projection. We don't have a rate dictated by an insurance company.
Correct.
So this is a $24 to $28 million expenditure. We're looking at a $4 million question tonight.
Correct.
I appreciate you bringing that to the board. I think the reason you bring it to the board is because it's the right thing to do. It's tax money. It goes in the budget. It's our job to balance the interests of the taxpayers and the employees, because the taxpayers need the employees. We need the employees. It's our job to approve the projection, clearly. So I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for all you've done on this. I do wish it was a little earlier, but hey, but I really appreciate all the effort you put into this. And the idea of beating up department heads, I hope that makes some
I didn't
people feel good.
beat up a
Enough.
department. We
Hey,
should not
so
be
I think for the
self-insured
next-
anymore.
I think for the next,
Can I think she already said it, but if you didn't come to us, what would we need in the budget?
So if we unilaterally, I guess,
Using
said
these
that
projections.
these are going, insurance rates are going up 16%, then I'll let Sharon answer what I think she would handle it from a budget perspective. That's her.
So, to Alderman Lavasser's point.
No, I don't want to hear. I
Well,
want
no,
my,
no,
to my
but
question.
it does kind of matter, right? He's saying, which it always was like this, when the budget was set, the rates increased, and we increased them to the employees, and we funded healthcare to the best of our ability in the budget. Maybe it wasn't the exact percentage, back then, I don't really know. At the end of the day, if we didn't fund it enough, we had to pay for it, whether it be through a reserve or whether, however, it had to be paid for. We tried to get it into the budget, and the mayor, he tried to get what he knew was going to be a shortfall this year into the budget, and that was the prudent thing to do at the time, when pencils down. So then, when there was a bigger increase, it was a decision made by Mayor Craig to come in front of the board because it was so large. If it is the will of the board that this should not be handled this way, and that you want us to, we have no problem. We were only doing as directed. So, coming to the board, if that's what you want, that's fine. We're more than willing to do that. But to Alderman Lavasser's point, before it wasn't like that, we got the increase from the experts, and we set the rates accordingly, and it was not a board vote. This is very recent. This happened in '23.
Yeah.
And that's, so, if anybody, I think direction needs to come to say, how do we do this going forward? Because we want to do what's right.
We do.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's,
They've been at 3% and 4%, so it didn't have to come to the board. They've been at 11% and 16%, now it's gonna come to the board. What is that number? If you didn't come to us, what would the city's 80% be?
On
At
16%,
16%, yes.
3.2 million. yeah.
3.2 million.
If we didn't
That's why
fund
it
it,
comes to the
right?
board.
So
We
now,
gotta
say
figure
we
that
said, we're gonna charge the 16%, but the $1.4 million is all that's in there, we still have to pay if it's under plan, right? I mean, we're gonna, it'll have to hit the reserve, or we'll have to have surplus to pay it. It's not like we're gonna, if we were to set rates, we're gonna come to you and say, well, you have a hammer over your head, you gotta put 3.2 million in there. You're gonna have to pay for it one way or the other. Either you're gonna budget for it, there's gonna be a reserve, or we're gonna roll the dice. It's just, that's the way it is.
okay. So I think we work over the next 2 weeks. We'll come up with a response. I'll work with the respective aldermen. We'll come up with a consensus, and we'll get the rates set by.
I have just one question, just a different question on the amount of money that we were billed of 24 million. How much actually was billed by the care providers? I'm an attorney. I get Medicare. I get a case. I got $40,000 worth of medical bills. Medicaid pays $10,000 of that 40. Of that $24 million, how much were we actually billed, and how much did you guys, well, obviously you must have stopped that number at 24. What was actually billed?
So we're
Do we
averaging.
know that number?
On top of my head, I don't know exact number, but I can probably back into it. We average about 60% discount for you.
Okay.
So just add 60% on top of that. So we already, to the medical claims, 24. So we
it would be about
discounted.
$36 million, you brought it down to 24 because you fight with them. Do you not give them the same formulas as, say, New Hampshire Medicaid or family, I think it's New Hampshire Family?
We wish we could get those.
Why can't we do that? Is it because we're a sitting target, because we're self-insured?
Not necessarily. We use our power. We use so in New Hampshire, we have over 500,000 members. So we use the power we have. When we go to Elliott, we say we insure 500,000 members. We want XYZ for contracts with you specifically. We do that with each provider. So we use our share power.
Medicare and Medicaid set at formulas that are set by federal statute or
Yes,
federal law?
correct.
We don't have that benefit.
Yes, correct.
Okay, I appreciate that, thank you.
Okay.
And
Thank
I
you.
was not being mean to you, I was just very frustrated because this was not a process that we ever dealt with before.
So we're going to get a ruling as to whether or not we're even going to have a vote? Is that
Yeah,
going to be
that's
part
what
of,
I'm,
that's
that's
part
what I'm
of the
saying.
2 weeks?
This is what we're
Terrific.
going to work
All right.
on going forward.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
I will inform you about the direction
Terrific.
that
Thanks,
I would
sir.
like to take for the Alderman budget as you guys take it over from here.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you all. I really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Would anyone like to remove any items from the consent agenda? Alderman Burke.
11, 12, and 13.
Is that it? Move on the rest. I have a motion to move by Alderman Terrio, second by Chairman Lavasser. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Number 10, Alderman Long.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm just wondering if these are within our procurement codes, going change orders from 50 to 100,000. If I'm a contractor, $100,000, I don't have to go through the joint. Under 100,000, I don't have to go, it goes from 50 to 100,000? That's pretty substantial for change orders. I mean, that's a lot of money, 100,000.
I would agree. I mean, this was,
No, it's going to change orders. When you read the,
this is a notice from the Joint School Buildings Committee of the change, so there's nothing for us to vote on. It's an informational matter. That was a vote that was taken by the Joint Committee.
and they have that authority to change.
Correct.
They do.
That's my understanding. Yes.
Why is it on? How about this?
As a notice of information.
Okay.
It's advising that it's changed. It was a unanimous
So
vote.
it's not the school board,
It's the Joint School
it's the
Board
joint
Alderman
building
Committee.
committee
Correct.
that has the authority to,
For this project.
to say not to review change orders, go from 50 to 100,000?
That's my understanding, yes.
I don't see how that could happen. I
That's
really
the-
don't. I don't.
I did-
I
I wouldn't have
don't, I
taken
don't
the vote.
see those 6 people having that authority. I don't know who looked at it and what statute allows them. I didn't see it in the statute that addresses the joint building committee. I mean, I'll have to do some more digging. I'll do some more digging. No, what it looks like the Board of School Committee has the authority. So the Board of School Committee has to review these, correct? Any change order under the number, 100,000, the Board of School Committee has to approve. Is that correct? That's my understanding? Does anybody know that?
This is specifically for the joint school building and
No,
for the
right.
priority one
Right,
project.
Right, but well, when it was at 50,000, so it was, let's say it was 28,000,
Yeah.
the Board of School Committee had to approve that. They had to take a vote to approve.
Your Honor, he's correct. You're correct. It says right here, that it's 100,000 may be executed by the Manchester School District. So you're right, it defaults. So anything up to that, it's the school district's call. It doesn't even have to go to the joint board. So
Yeah,
the joint board is
and-
giving all the authority to the school board. You're
Right.
right, 100%.
Right, and that's what kind of,
Yep. No.
you know, I mean, we have procurement codes, so you know.
I would agree.
I mean, I'll have to look at the statute and see if the joint building has that authority, because $100,000, if I'm a contractor, wow.
Yeah.
I'm coming in with $98,000 change orders and reeling you right in.
Yeah,
That's my concern, but
I would agree.
it's not an action item, I get that, okay, so.
Okay.
So do we need
So,
a
motion
motion
to
to move
accept
to,
the report.
not to
Motion to
accept,
accept.
but to,
Yes,
If I-
motion to accept.
If I may, anybody who voted in the positive on our board, that sits on that board, voting the positive, could file a motion to reconsider.
All we were doing was just updating like a 25-year-old number of $50,000. That's all we were doing, that I recall, was making a number that seemed reasonable in today's world. So, take the message, I'll take the message back.
Do you have a motion?
yeah, I move to acknowledge.
Receive or
I don't
acknowledge
want to move
the-
to approve it, I don't
Okay.
want to approve it.
Yeah.
No,
Motion
no.
to acknowledge receipt?
Sure.
Okay. Do you have a second?
Well, you can make a motion to advise the board to reconsider, and I'll second that.
No, I don't know if that's our purview, I'm hearing that, that's their purview. I'm gonna check that.
They want us to ask for a ceasefire?
I'm gonna.
Okay, so we have a motion.
Yeah.
Do I have a second? Second? Okay, second by Alderman Sapienza. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's a motion just to acknowledge receipt of
Receipt of
agenda
this-
item 10.
this notice.
It's a notice. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Alderman Burkish.
Yes, could I have the Director of Homeless Stability come down, please? Housing stability.
11, 12, and 13.
Good evening, Adrian. Thank you for coming. I had a couple questions. On the letter that you sent us the other day, you referenced that your office would be moving to City Hall. And could you comment on the other changes here? Because I understand that you weren't at the committee to put your input in, so for the full board, would you indulge us? Thank you.
Okay. So there's the office move, and then you said, could I comment on the other changes that are being proposed out of the three things? Sure. I mean, for the office change, we have a plan to have my office move soon. And we are also having a plan in place where we're going to be transitioning the operations of the shelter to another provider once that gets identified soon into the new fiscal year. So there's going to be a time soon enough where we won't be operating the shelter. So that's one of the most practical reasons. And the other major issue with whether or not offices should move to that location is that we really need that location to provide the services that we've been talking about to the guests there. So if we really are serious about wanting to have employment services, having case management services on site, enticing providers, those are the consultation spaces that they have to do that work in. And we don't want to give that up for any reason if we're going to prioritize that activity. And also the oversight is not necessary. We have, stacks of staff and management levels doing the different operations. So those are things we haven't discussed at all. So there's a lot of details and workflows that I can help explain. I provided the memos so that you saw the myriad of different things that I'm focused on so that you can appreciate a little bit more what kind of is on my plate. And just like any other department head, I would require an appropriate setting for me to have conferences with people, sit with people, be away from the public so that I can do my work. I certainly love to engage with the public. I'm at the shelter all the time. I was there most of the day today. And when I'm there, quite frankly, I'm on my feet. I'm giving elbow support to people. I'm meeting with guests. I'm talking with them. I'm walking around, taking inventory of things, checking things out. That's the nature of the work that I do there. So there wouldn't be a utility of me having the work that I do that's statewide and locally and coordination-wise at that location. So that's the piece around the office. Do people want to ask questions about that before we move to the other 2 points?
Alderwoman Fajardo.
Thank you. I guess I would address my question to the chair of the committee, Alderwoman Thomas. What problem is this solving?
So the reason why the committee actually recommended this was because we were hearing and also seeing that not many things were done at the shelter that should have been going on, having a lot of service providers come in, people kind of, coming in, getting what they need and kind of going out, right? So we wanted to see that more, a lot more agencies coming in. Also, like we said in our committee, things were not really going on. And to have oversight in that shelter would be really good.
Could you specify the things that aren't going on? Because we get the data that, X number of service providers are seeing Y number of individuals. So again, what's the problem?
Yeah, so the data, can show that. But like we said in our committee, even when me and Alderman Berry were there for, a little under 2 hours, we saw one person come in for a disabled individual, which was great. But we didn't see anything else going on. They had
Isn't that a good thing if people, like, I don't,
Wait, it's what?
you mean people aren't coming in to access services?
No, like agencies aren't coming in. So that was not a good thing. Also, we saw a whiteboard that was empty for scheduling and things like that. So it kind of showed us that nothing was going on, even that day that we were there,
For
unfortunately.
2 hours.
I know it was 2 hours, but, you know, people have been saying, you know, thank you for that recommendation. You know, the fire chief is in the fire station, police chief is where, you know, a director of a daycare has to be at a daycare center.
She's not our shelter supervisor.
But
All right,
she's a
let's-
director of the housing, right? She has to,
That's
a
one
big job of
facet.
hers is to really oversee the engagement center, really, you know, and
That's
kind of.
one facet.
Yeah,
of her
there's a
work.
lot of moving parts.
Okay, so Alderman Sapienza?
Make a motion to receive and file item number 11.
Second.
Roll call.
Discussion?
Yeah, discussion. You mentioned that there's a short-term, you're going somewhere?
Excuse me?
That you discussed with the mayor that there's a short-term, you're gonna be put in an office somewhere?
So there's multiple moving pieces to this part. So included in the budget is a number to rehabilitate and move. We have a staffing crunch here in City Hall, as you know, planning, HR, solicitor. So when we were initially having the conversations about office space, we were looking at McGregor Street, rehabbing over there, moving X amount of offices over to that location, which would open up places downstairs in City Hall for additional offices that may be in need. Then the conversation came up about Waterworks and doing the bond for that, and then Lincoln Street would potentially become available, which would alleviate a lot of the pressure and concerns about staffing. So there are a lot of moving pieces to this, and when we would have office space available. I spoke with Director Crosdale on Monday about if we were to approve this bond to move them out of that office and build a new building, is there office space available right now to move either portions of HR or solicitor over there, which would open up space there as well. But that time frame is murky right now, just because I want to get a consensus of the board on what makes the most sense. If we're going to do a bond for Waterworks, then I don't want to do a $700,000 bond across the river. We don't need to do that, right? So those things are up in the air. To the point about accountability and oversight, one of the conversations that we've been having, so tomorrow I have my monthly department head meeting, and we are meeting with all of the relevant department heads to put together a work plan, or to talk about what a work plan looks like to upgrade security at the engagement center, as is the consensus and will of the board. And I spoke with Director Boulogne to match that timeline. The direction that I gave was, I want a work plan for the security upgrades by the first BMA meeting in May. So that would be May 7th. And what I talked about with Director Boulogne was having a work plan in place to address the concerns about not enough programs going on, not enough activity going on, employment services, whether it's the VA, whether it's how do we operationalize the need to get licenses. So I talked about putting a work plan together at the same time frame. So by the first BMA meeting in May, the idea is we'll be able to look at both of those work plans to address concerns about oversight and accountability. So I think if the message that's being sent is that we want to do more there, we can address that through the work plans that we can deliver to the board. Long answer to a short question.
No,
but
that was perfect,
Okay.
thank you.
Alderman Berry was next.
Thank you. Director Boulogne, do you just don't want to go over there? You don't want an office there?
There would be no issue about me not wanting to go over there. It's not the right decision for the work that we need to do. I mean, housing is not emergency shelter. I think we can all agree to that. So if I'm the director of housing stability, I shouldn't be focused on running an emergency shelter as best as we can run an emergency shelter. We need to get these people into housing, and we need to source affordable housing for them, and that's a much bigger macro level position. So it's not the right setting for me to work in the shelter. It also would be stepping on toes of a management structure that already exists. of a contractual arrangement that we have with staff. There's a site director there, there's managers, there's supervisors on shifts. They don't need another person coming in and confusing them, and I certainly don't need to
They
be.
say there's a site manager?
Yes,
Who's that?
Jake King.
And how many days a week is he there?
He works 40 hours, 20 on site, 20 off.
20 on site and 20 off?
Yep, and there's always a manager
But
on.
that's my whole point, and that's why I made the motion that we need someone there for oversight. We don't have anyone there. 20 hours a week for someone to be on property isn't, in my opinion, that just doesn't make it work. I mean, you know, when we discussed this a year ago, when you were hired, I would hope everyone's goal was to not only get people off the streets and into a shelter, and it wasn't just to hide them away from the public. And I know we had a problem with tents and everything in front of 199 Manchester. I get it. And I've been adamant about saying that that's not what we expect, or that's not what I expect. I don't want them just off the street. I want them to get the help that they need. And without you there, or your assistant, or both of you there during the daytime, 20 hours doesn't cut it for a site manager.
I don't think that you know anything about whether or not the program is successful, or what our workflows are.
I don't think it is successful
Or
right
what's
now.
happening with the oversight. There's been very little discussion with me about any of the workflows we currently have in place. I would love to sit down and tell you how we actually do business, and the community providers that we have coming into that space would be terribly insulted to think that you're saying that they're not doing any work there. They're extremely proud of what they've been doing.
Don't say I haven't. I said that I don't think they're doing any work
That
there.
is the model
people
of
that are
what
working,
we're-
The people that are working there, the staff, are doing a great job, but they need oversight. They don't have it. They don't have
There's no
oversight.
indication that anything is not working in the direction that we want it to be working in. There's been
When-
no
when we
indication
went
of
there-
an incident or an issue
When
that.
we went there on that Friday, all right, granted, we were there for 2 hours, okay? But keep in mind that we have to go over there by invitation only. We have to make an appointment with you to go over there, all right, which I'm totally against. I think if we want to go over there, if I want to go to see the chief over at Manchester Police Department, I'm going to walk in there and ask if he's available. And the same thing at the fire department, same thing at Public Works. That's just the way the city operates.
The emergency shelter is working perfectly,
When
and
we
we're
walked
working
in
on
there,
getting
there were
housing.
about 50 people, sitting around, okay? They weren't engaged. They were engaged with each other, but like Alderman Thomas said, there was no one there. There was no outreach people there. There was no organization there that was working with them. And that's what we want. We want to make sure that these outreach workers, that these organizations that we depend on, that are available, from what I understand, why they're not there. We want them there on a daily basis, but we want you, or Owen, we want you guys there to oversee what the operations. 20 hours a week for a site manager, Jake does a great job when he's there, but 20 hours is not good to be off-site. We need to focus there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Alderman Thomas.
I absolutely agree with Alderman Barry. We've talked about this an awful lot, especially when we did go meet with you that Friday. You did mention you had 3 staff during the day. Was that including Jake King?
No, that's
Okay.
3 staff that are scheduled to work.
Yeah, and you also kind of looked at me and kind of gave me a little bit of concern about kind of some staff, which made me mention oversight. You also mentioned that there were 3 offices in the back that were rarely used, you said, because not many agencies come and not many individuals want to go meet with them.
That's not what I meant to imply at all. We have, as you saw in my data presentation, I'm very impressed with the amount of provider activity we have on site, very impressed. We have massive amounts of activity and interventions happening on site throughout the day. The couple of hours that you were there on a Friday afternoon, you saw one provider from Manchester Mental Health that you knew, and we didn't point out or ask if any of the other people in the room were providers or not, and you wouldn't know. Outreach workers, you wouldn't necessarily know who they are. So we saw one. You didn't ask me to point out who was there. We didn't ask the staff to point out who was there. and you don't know what activities were happening during the day. But we have lots of data, and it's not just my data, it's the data from these partner agencies. So if you're insinuating that I'm not telling the truth about what's happening there, then you're insinuating that they are not telling the truth about what's happening there, because this is their data, and this is their work, and that's very important. And what I did say about those offices is that we offer those consultation spaces. We haven't had a lot of providers or guests that have wanted to come back into the back room to meet with them, but we like to provide those options. And as we build different provider opportunities, like the doorways started today, if they're doing an insurance reinstatement with someone to get them to detox, it may be that the back room is more appropriate than the larger room where they have to share information in front of people. So there's utility of being able to expand. That's the design of that space, was so that we could expand. We just opened in September. We've been at this for 5 months, building up this activity and filling this out, and it's been a trajectory that is going up. We are extremely proud of the work that we're doing. And this is absolutely the direction and the way that we should be going.
And I understand that, but also when you say that you have been opened since September, in your memo to all of us, you highlighted really great things. I appreciate that. But those are works that just came up very recent, right? So these are people, like you said, the doorways are just starting today. I know you mentioned to me, Hope was coming in.
Right.
So these are things that have already been in Manchester for an awfully long time that should have been there last year, is what we're kind of also trying to
So
say.
Hope for Recovery in the doorways of this week is this week's work of soliciting partners to come on site. But all of the people I listed in the presentation have been built up since September. I mean, it's pretty impressive how many people we've gotten to partner with and how we have built this and what we have on site. It's more than any other shelter has on site for provider collaboration. It's the providers are extremely excited about this opportunity to see their guests, and it's working. And I'd love to be able to show you how. I think maybe we need to have a different type of discussion so that we can show you what we're doing and you can have more assurance of what's happening. But the goals are the same, that we need to connect people to services. We need to help them recover from homelessness. And this is what we do. There's no lack of urgency.
Alderman Sapienza?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Earlier, thank you for the presentation. Earlier, you had said something to the effect of, you're the Director of Housing Stability. Your focus isn't the emergency shelter. Can you explain that a little bit more, please?
Yes.
Because I'm not real clear on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, emergency shelter is not the solution to homelessness. We needed to open an emergency shelter because we had emergency issues with people being unsheltered and outside last winter. So we opened an emergency winter shelter, you remember, for 3 months because we needed to offer an alternative to a large encampment that we had downtown, right? So we added that capacity of 52 beds between Brook Street and Beach Street in order to respond to that crisis that we had. And then we decided that we were going to continue it, open the engagement center. Here we are a year later, right? So emergency shelter is an unfortunate emergency response, meaning that it's not the appropriate place for people to live forever, right? I think we can all agree we don't want people to live in an emergency shelter forever. But we're getting them out of the cold, we're getting them connected to services, having hygiene and things like that accessible to them. And then the next steps that I would like to focus my attention on, and I support the mayor's plan to transition the shelter to the community partners because we don't feel like the shelter should go away. It's serving a purpose to keep people inside, but I would like very much to be able to turn my limited attention to the other goals of preventing people falling into homelessness, paying attention to those kids that are being identified in schools and what's going on with their families, figuring out how we can stop people from losing their housing, and then building more affordable housing on the other side of homelessness.
All right, so that's a lot of macro right there.
That's
I'm
right.
surprised. I really thought your focus was 39 Beach. But, so, in a given typical day, you're doing other things like you had just mentioned,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
All right, one other thing, any info on who's found gainful employment, if anyone?
You mean
We-
since you last asked me a
Yeah.
couple weeks ago?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
That's the third time now I've asked you. Still, has anybody found a job?
We're still looking for employment resources to connect people to, and that's what I'd like to use some of those provider rooms for. I mean, it hasn't been an easy match to find providers that work with the homeless population, that get people jobs, and I would very much like, no one has mentioned an opportunity to me that I haven't wanted to follow up with, and I would really solicit your support in finding a community partner that does that. We have Job Corps coming. It's limited in what we can do, but it's definitely a goal. I mean, of course we want people to find employment.
All right, I really thought 39 Beach was your main focus, but apparently it's not, and I hear so much abstract stuff that you're saying, and I don't know, it sounds like a runaway bureaucracy to me. Anyway, thank you.
Alderwoman Fajardo.
Thank you. So if what I'm hearing is it sounds like there's discomfort around the lack of level of supervision. So to me, I think, to underscore your point, I think there's an opportunity to just look at the hours and the coverage by the person whose job it is to supervise the shelter. So I feel like if that's the problem, the solution feels a little bit different to me.
Alderman Terrio.
Thank you, Your Honor. First, let me start out, I've never been in the shelter, but I agree with Alderman Barry and Alderman Thomas. I think there needs to be more oversight, and here's why. I drive by the shelter every day. I live on South Cypress, so I drive down Beach, I bang a left onto Silly right at Roma Joe's, and I drive up the hill, and I live on South Cypress, so I drive by it every day. So what I see routinely from the outside of the shelter is I see homeless people, they leave, I don't know if they're not allowed in during the day or whatever, but they're sleeping. It's routine for me to see people sleeping in the doorways of the buildings around the shelter.
Mhm.
That's very common. The other thing that's very common is they'll come out of the shelter and they'll beg at, where Roma Joe's is.
Yeah.
It's almost like they do shifts. I'll see different people at different times of the
Mhm.
day. I see a man in a wheelchair there very frequently. I believe he's missing his legs.
Mhm.
He's there a lot. His friends are there a lot. They'll also go down over into South Willow and beg at the different intersections.
Yeah, we know him.
And then about 2 weeks ago, there was an altercation out front. Fortunately, one man jumped out of my car to stop me, so I went around while the other two seemed to be getting into a fight. The other thing, when I was running for election, I walked the ward. I walk every street in my ward. And the people in that part of Ward 7 are very unhappy, but the reason why they're unhappy is bikes are being stolen in the neighborhood, cars are being opened up at night, and people are stealing things out of the cars and change. It's not, we're not talking about major crimes, but there's a lot of things that are going on that seem to be connected to the shelter that shouldn't be going on, and there needs to be more oversight. For instance, people are just like sleeping in doorways all around the shelter. Of course, there was the fight, and then they're just going around begging. So, as Alderman Barry said, he wants to see an improvement. Those things aren't improved. We're just enabling them at this point. If they're just begging, getting in fights, sleeping in doorways during the day, that we're not really helping them. And that's we need a change in behavior.
Mhm.
And I want to help them,
Mhm.
but what I'm seeing is it's not an improvement in their lives.
Should we expand from 40 beds to 140 beds in order to give them a place to stay? Because we definitely have a bunch of people on our wait list that are probably sleeping in those doorways waiting to get into our shelter.
This is the middle of the day, so I assume.
Right. I mean, we're open during the day, every day, 7 days a week from 9 to 5.
What we need to be doing is asking them to get jobs, helping them get jobs.
That's what we're doing inside the building.
Hold on. The last time you were here, I said, do you require people to work? And you said, no, I don't require them to work. So I think a job is the best social program in the world, one of the best social programs. Not asking people to work is not a good idea. So I think you have the education, you're a social worker, to do this. We just need to do a different change in direction. Because what we're doing right now is not working. Thank you.
Chairman Lavasser.
Thank you. Tomorrow, I'm going to send out an email to all department heads that work in the city to find out if you're okay where you work. If you want to change places, work in different buildings, you let us know. You are an employee of the city. You work for the board. You know that. Many members of this board would like to have you work out of that shelter. I think you're pretty gifted at multitasking. I don't think it matters where you are. When you started a year ago, you started in the police department, moved to the welfare department. Now you're in the health department, so I don't see what the big deal is about you moving over to the shelter and doing all of the things that you do. I don't think the office or the location that you're in is going to make any difference in how you manage things. But I do believe that if you're there, things will get done better. I think people will be more attentive. I think the employees will know the big cheese is in the building. And I know that as a restaurant owner for 35 years, I left to go somewhere, came back. The place ran a hell of a lot better when I was in the building than it was when I was out. So this is more of a policy issue. I don't think it's supposed to be an argument. I don't think you have, it's nice that you get to actually air your grievances or talk to us and tell us you prefer not to be in there. I don't believe you have that right to tell us where you want to work or not work. I don't know whoever told you had to be in the other 3 locations. That building is open 128 hours a week, as you know. You have a site manager who's on there 20 hours a week. That's deplorable in my mind. But again, I actually thought you would be happy that you would be moving there. I mean, your energy, I would think that you would be excited about actually working. You know, if I was a coach of a baseball team, I'd want to be on the baseball field. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to be on the football field. I'd want to be where the action is. I'd want to see what's going on. This board is excited. We still think that a lot of good things can come out of that board, and we think if you're there, we think things are going to improve. That's why we want you there. It's not a personal attack. It's not some kind of surreptitious game that anybody's playing. We just believe that if you're there, the oversight's going to be better, and while the cat's away, the mice will play, and whether you want to believe it or not, or you think that these employees are all great, and I'm sure they are, they will even be greater. They will even be better, and I think that you will do a much better job, and I think it would give a level of comfort to many members on this board that you're really watching that place, and then still working with everybody else and, you know, doing all the things that you do. That's just my perspective. I don't see this as a punishment. I don't see this as, you know, anything bad. I think this is where you should have been from the beginning, and I think we would have seen a lot more things moving a lot quicker if you were on the premises.
I can appreciate that perspective, but because this is the field of work that I've been in for so long, I understand what it actually means to be running a shelter. I understand what it means to be doing my position and what the positions are of my staff, and I don't want to have us be set up in a way that the shelter is not going to be as effective. We have the same goals, which is we want the shelter to be effective. We want these people to move out of homelessness into housing, and I am the person who understands how best to do that because of the years of practice and trial and error and understanding that.
Do you think that somebody who is on, do you think the site manager with the name site manager should not be on the site 40 hours? You think that 20 hours is enough?
I mean, we're saying a lot of titles and things like that. Why don't we figure out some sort of way to have a committee or something, have a conversation with me?
I don't know who we is.
We, as the relationship between the board and myself as the director, let's talk about how it is I can help you understand the different roles that we have in the shelter, what people's different responsibilities are, and the structure of oversight that we currently have. Because you're saying that we don't have oversight, and there has not been an indication that there's something that's not working. We've had an amazing amount of service delivery on that site. We have very, very low incidence. We have the lowest amount of overdoses from the other shelters in Manchester because of the way that we manage things safely, despite our population being more sick. We have a lot of really special things to be proud of, and we've reduced outside homelessness as a part of this programming.
Wow, you really don't want to go there, huh? Okay, whatever, we'll make the vote.
Okay, we had, Alderman Sapienza, did you?
Good luck.
Alderman Goon?
We'll be looking for a shelter operator pretty soon when we don't have a homeless director.
Alderman Goonan?
I think it's unfortunate that we're making a determination on whether you're doing anything over there based on a couple hours on a Friday. Just my opinion. I know myself and Chief Birch has been over there, and I believe your statistics. I believe all the department heads statistics. I don't know why this is happening. I think on some levels it may be a personal thing. That's my opinion.
All right.
Excuse me?
I'm sorry, please continue your thought,
Okay.
please. Just-
All right, I'm not starting.
Oh,
All right,
I
all right,
apologize.
I apologize.
No, I don't mean to get
just
into
didn't know if
trouble.
someone-
I was talking up somebody, I'm sorry
Okay,
it was too loud.
gotcha. I
But I would
apologize.
like to bring, I'm sorry, are you still going?
Okay, yeah, I just want to, I think you're in a tough position, I really do. I think you're doing some good work. I don't think these things happen, in a blink of an eye. This has been since September. I know you have a lot of people over there that are working. I know you have a lot of outside vendors coming in, doing work. I talked to Manchester Mental Health. I know they're there a lot. I'm happy to see some of the other folks come in. But I believe you have dozens of people coming in, dozens of organizations coming in and trying to help. And I just wish we would believe our department head, that she's doing the work, because I do. And I think it's probably one of the most difficult populations amongst our homeless that you're dealing with every day. When I go, it's very difficult to place those folks. And Alderman Ed Sapienza, he's 100% correct. I don't think anybody took a look at what your real job description was. I think they just assume that you're going to run the shelter. That's your number one thing. It's about homelessness in the big picture, like Alderman Sapienza said. So I do appreciate what you're doing there. And I think it's going to take a while to build up to that point. On another, this is, 6 months until we're going to make some sort of a change there. I personally don't think it's fair to put you in there for, and on top of that, I'm not sure if you went in those rooms, but myself and Alderman Burkish went in those rooms. There is nothing in there. Those are 6 by 8 room that's used for some of the vendors that come in, or some of the nonprofits that come in. Two of those buildings, they're storage units.
Right.
2 of those storage units were full, and there's one that's not full. I don't know what we have to have for IT in there. I don't know how much of a cost that would be. I just don't think it's an appropriate spot. You're in essentially the living quarters and the sleeping quarters. I'm not sure how anybody can get anything done. And if that's not it's just part of your oversight. It's not, like I said, take a look at her job description. It's not what you think.
And even if I improved the oversight, if we were cranking on all cylinders of everything that we do there because of my being there and cracking the whip, it's not going to create housing for people, okay? If I got more people jobs, more people healthcare, more people connected to mental health and substance abuse services, it does not create apartments for them to live in with those wages and that sobriety. So we're doing that, but there's another issue that we have to tackle, and that's building affordable, deeply subsidized, and supportive housing for these folks. We also have to prevent the bucket loads of people falling into homelessness. This takes a significant amount of systems level work, and this is the work that I'm prepared to do.
Did you want
What, I'm done.
Okay.
I asked for a roll call.
Alderman Barry?
Because Alderman Goonan brought it up, I didn't base my thoughts on a 2-hour visit. Okay, this has been my thought for quite a long time about getting people off the street, into the shelter, but once we get them in the shelter, that's why we had a nice contract with Gatehouse, which we lost. They left for whatever reason. In my opinion, it was working out great. They were getting people into treatment. That was one aspect of it. The other one, Alderman Ed Sapienza brought up, was employment. I think that it's huge. When you have 50 people sitting around, some of them walking in with their cardboards that they were just out panhandling with, coming in and out of there, it just doesn't feel good for me, like saying, why? Why aren't these people out working? Why aren't some of these people? Some of them, I get it, they're suffering from mental illness, they're handicapped, and they can't go out in the workforce. But there are quite a few in there that probably could. And I know you mentioned Job Corps. How often do they go in?
I'd have to look it up to tell you. Yeah.
Yeah, but you should know that, and I'm not, okay? But I appreciate the fact that you'll get back to us with that. But again, I just think it's so important, and I'm not picking on you. I'm just frustrated with the whole thing, Even if you weren't in the picture, I'd still be frustrated because I want it to work. I think I've worked really, really hard. When Gatehouse came in, Alderman Long and I, when we first initially met with Amanda, when we first met her, she was very excited about it, and I think her and Shane did an awesome job. They're not there anymore, but they were getting people off the streets and into rehab. They would have had much easier working inside that shelter, getting people in there, but they left. I'm sure part of it was being burnt out. Because
And do
it's
you
a
know
tough-
how
it's a
many
tough
of those
job.
people that they got off the street into treatment were back on the street?
Oh, and we know that happens, and you should know that happens. They can go in and out of there 10 times, but you know what? The 11th time is if that works, that's great.
Right.
And I don't have a problem with people that go in and then come out. Hopefully, they're gonna go back in, they're gonna see the light. And I
Right.
know we discussed about, your thoughts about Farnham Center, that you didn't think that they were really acting in good faith, because when you had called them or other people on your behalf called them to take people in, they're not available. But they always tell us, and I always tell other people, that they are available. And the
Yeah, it's
state
an
gives them a
admissions
lot of money.
process issue. I don't want it to go down that I said they didn't do something in good faith. I think that there's an admissions bottleneck that happens where people who are homeless need to access treatment on demand, right? You understand that, we've talked about that. And Farnham's admission process isn't always catering to that population, right? So
but
that's
you
something
also-
we're gonna work on
You also mentioned that
them
you've
with.
called them and they're not available. They don't answer the phone.
Meaning that admissions process,
Yeah,
yes.
right, but they should be. I mean, someone
Right.
has to be
We're gonna
there.
work on that.
If someone's ready to go for treatment at 2:00 in the morning, and they call and there's no one available to take them in, and they say, call back at 8:00, or we have to call back at 8:00 when someone's manning the phones, that 6 hours is lost. They're not gonna go.
Yeah.
We've already lost them, and we don't want that. So I just, I want these people to be productive. I want the ones that can. And as far as affordable housing goes, for those people that are in there that are homeless, some of them it may pertain to, most of them it's not. Most of them, the ones that I see and we deal with, they couldn't afford $100 a month, never mind $1,500 or $1,000 a month. They just can't afford it. All right, there are people that are working, and Alderman Sapienza brought it up a couple weeks ago, the people that are working really hard to make ends meet, but they're still struggling. They still can't. They might be making $15, $20 an hour, one person for the family, and they can't afford, to live in an apartment. They just
Yeah.
can't do it.
This
But
is
there's other ones that's
something
not
that I
gonna affect
deeply
at all.
understand. I mean, I've dedicated my entire career to this. This is something I deeply understand.
But you understand that there are people in there that, whether the rent's $100, it's not gonna have an impact. They're not
Right.
gonna be able to afford it.
Right, so we need to work with that, right? We've made an enormous amount of progress in this past year that we should be really proud of, and we shouldn't lose any momentum of where we're going. And I know it's very hard for you to understand what the work is that we're doing, because this is not your field of work. But the entire army of people that do this work on the ground feel differently. They feel like we're in a better place than we've ever been. And we can have them march up here and talk about that in front of you if that's what you need in order to believe in what we're doing. But the data that I showed is very impressive, and it's important that we don't lose track on that.
I may not have a degree in being a social worker, but I have a pretty good job.
Okay, Alderman O'Neill.
Adrian, I wish you'd stop talking down to the board, that we're dummies. We're responsible for every aspect of government in the city of Manchester, including what you do. And I can tell you observations I make. I talk and speak with homeless people, so stop talking down to us that we're dummies and we don't know anything about the work you're doing. There have been people homeless in the city for a long time. There have been people with alcohol and substance abuse issues. And I've been quiet until you just made that comment. You don't think we understand. We understand, and more so than you, we're responsible to the citizens for understanding. So please be respectful to us about that.
Alderman Long.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, I'm seeing issues with 39 Beach Street. I'm seeing a size issue. I'm seeing you coordinating with other nonprofits coming in, trying to get them to help us there. it's not conducive to setting up those meetings. You would have to set up a meeting somewhere else. So I see that. However, I don't know the industry of police work, but I know what they do because they tell me. And I think there's a communication issue that I don't get enough information. I don't get enough information, and questions that I've put that don't get answered. That's the issue that I have, is that, as Alderman O'Neill said, I'm responsible for setting policy for things that I don't know. So I gotta learn everything I gotta learn as quick as I can so I can make an informed decision. So that's our responsibility. So I think that's where the disconnect is we're not getting answers to questions. And that's how we get informed to make these policy decisions.
All right, so we have Alderman Burkish.
Item 12 and 13, probably just join together and make a vote because apparently
Okay, well, so we have a motion to receive and file from Alderman Sapienza on item 11. And I think we had a second on that, so. Okay, so we have a motion to receive and file is what's before the board right now on item 10. So the motion is to receive and file.
Item 11.
Well, I think we first have to address 10 because there was a motion and there was a second, so we can dispose of that. 11, I'm sorry, 11.
Okay.
Okay, so motion to receive and file and a roll call vote from Alderman O'Neill has been requested.
Alderman O'Neill.
No.
Alderman Lavasser. No. Alderman Terrio.
No.
Alderman Ed Sapienza.
No.
Alderman Burkish.
Yes.
Alderman Berry. No. Alderman Vincent.
No.
Alderman Thomas.
No.
Alderman Morgan.
No.
Alderman Goonan.
Yes.
Alderman Long.
Yes.
Alderman Fajardo.
Yes.
Alderman Tony Sapienza.
Yes.
Alderman Cantor.
No.
Motion fails.
Okay, so now we have to address 11, 12, and 13. Alderman Burkish, were you saying to put them all together? Okay, so make a motion to,
This motion is
I need the full motion. Motion to enjoin and approve 11, 12, 13.
Reports on 11, 12, and 13 that are unanimous.
Okay, so we have a motion seconded by
Roll call.
Chairman Lavasser. All those in favor?
Discussion?
Discussion.
Thank you, Your Honor. On number 13, policies are normally set by standing committees. I don't know if this is okay to have policies set by special committees that are going to advise us. No, I know, but I don't know if we want to get into it. Usually it's administration that gets policies. And in this one, it's the special committee
So refer it to,
that is going to get that is going to recommend the policy and send it to the full board. I mean, is that protocol, either Mr. Norman or the solicitor?
I mean, if the board is inclined to accept that report as it's stated, they certainly could. This is a subcommittee that's been established to deal with this issue specifically.
Okay.
If the board prefers to do what it traditionally does with policy decisions or policy draft policies, they could send it to admin as well.
Okay, I'm good. Thanks.
so you're all set if we enjoin the three?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Alderman Sapienza.
This committee is for alcohol, other drugs, and youth services, not for homelessness.
I understand, but those issues have traditionally gone to that committee. This board doesn't have a
It's an issue of
homeless.
jurisdiction. Yeah.
Correct.
That committee would have jurisdiction over homelessness issues.
I can change the name, if you'd like.
Okay, so we have a motion by Alderman Terrio, seconded by Chairman Lavasser
Roll
to
call.
pass 11, 12, and 13.
Alderman Terrio.
Yes.
Alderman Ed Sapienza.
Yes.
Alderman Burkish.
No.
Alderman Berry. Yes. Alderman Vincent.
Yes.
Alderman Thomas.
Yes.
Alderman Morgan.
Yes.
Alderman Goonan. No. Alderman Long. No. Alderman Fajardo.
No.
Alderman Tony Sapienza.
No.
Alderman Cantor.
Yes.
Alderman O'Neill.
Yes.
Alderman Lavasser.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay, moving into regular business. Communication from Emmanuel USA advising the board of his resignation as an alternate member of the Conservation Commission with regrets. Ladies and gentlemen, what is your pleasure?
So moved, Your Honor.
Okay, motion by Alderman O'Neill, seconded by Alderman Long. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Nominations to the zoning board. Max Latona to be elevated to a regular member, term to expire March 1, 2025. Nick Taylor.
Motion to waive the reading.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Chairman Lavasser, seconded by Alderman Sapienza. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Pursuant to Rule 23 of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, these nominations will lay over to the next meeting of the board.
Can we have a discussion on this? Or do we wait for?
I think this is
2 weeks?
just the nominating process, and then the discussion would happen for confirmations. But
2
if
weeks
there's
from
yeah, but if there's a question that you have, we can address it under new business.
Yeah. Okay, on the new business, sure. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Number 16, confirmations. Office of Youth Services Advisory Board, Brett Marin as a regular member, term to expire January 1, 2027. Board of Trustees of Trust Funds, Adam Bergeron as a regular member, term to expire January 1, 2026. Ladies and gentlemen, what is your pleasure?
Move, Your Honor.
Alderman O'Neill, seconded by Alderman Vincent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item 17, communication from Alan Aldenberg, Chief of Police, requesting authorization to execute a contract that includes indemnification language with the Behavioral Health Improvement Institute at Keene State College. Ladies and gentlemen, what is your pleasure?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Long, second by Alderman O'Neill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Is there any new business?
Yeah, I got new business.
Alderman Long.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, I've thought of that also. We had a couple testifying about nominations. I know I know of one nomination where the woman served for 2 or 3 months. I mean, here's a volunteer volunteering for the planning board. I was there when she was there. She was doing fine. I thought she was good. She was the niche of, I mean, it's not good, in my opinion, to have all developers or all realtors or all attorneys or all, you know, we need a good mix of people. She was an average woman, you know, that had unique questions that she would ask developers that I wouldn't ask because I'm not living like she's living in an apartment, riding her bike all over the place, which I thought brought value to the table. So I don't know why they get replaced before their term expires.
Sure. Well, the term has, I mean, I have the appointment capability because the term that she's currently serving under has expired. But I mean, I think this is what this 2-week period is for. I'm nothing if not collaborative, and I would love to hear, I'd be happy to sit down with you and hear any concerns. I mean, Alderwoman Fajardo sent me some suggestions for nominations, both on the lead commission and on the planning board as well. So I would extend that offer to anybody on the board. If you have suggestions for any open boards or commissions or concerns about any nominations that I've made, I'm certainly happy to hear them out in the interim 2-week period that we have.
Okay, good.
Yeah, thank you.
Expect an appointment. We'll have an appointment.
You're always welcome.
Have your people call my people.
We'll work it out. Other items for new business?
Second.
I'll second that.
Motion by Chairman Lavasser, second by Alderman O'Neill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.